Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Nivesh Mahakumbh August 2024, celebrating independence through financial empowerment. As India stands at the cusp of another Independence Day, we take this moment to reflect on our nation's extraordinary journey, a journey defined by resilience, unity, and an unwavering quest for freedom. Just as our forefathers fought for our nation's independence, today we are here to discuss how each one of us can achieve financial independence, a cornerstone of true freedom. Financial independence enables us to make informed choices, secure our futures, and build a prosperous life for ourselves and our families. Today's event is about empowering individuals with the knowledge and strategies needed to navigate the complexities of financial planning. We'll explore how a broad asset allocation strategy encompassing equities, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, commodities, and emerging assets like ESG funds can offer robust solutions for achieving financial goals. As we delve into these discussions, we are reminded that just like our nation's journey, personal financial independence requires determination, strategic planning, and informed choices. This edition of Nivesh Mahakumbh is especially significant as it marks another milestone in our journey. To set the tone for today's discussions, I'd like to begin with a moment of reflection and respect for our roots. We'll start with our national anthem. All right, let us now invoke the Aditya Vandana, a tribute to the guiding light that inspires our endeavors.
Adityah Savita Surya Khagah Bhusha Gabhastiman Suvarna Sadrisho Bhanur Vishwareta Divakaraha.
गच्छामि कराभाय हरये विश्वकर्मणे नमस्तमोऽपि निघ्नाय तुजये लोकसाक्षिणे जयाय जयभद्राय हर्षवाय नमो नमः सहस्रांश आदित्याय नमो नमः आदित्याय नमो नमः।
Indeed, a beautiful rendition to start this event. As we move forward, it is my pleasure to introduce our first guest of the day, someone who, well, needs no introduction to the world of asset management. He is the one, the only, Mr. A. Balasubramanian, Managing Director and CEO of Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC. Now, this year, Bala completes an incredible 30 years in the asset management industry, a journey that has been nothing short of both being transformative, both for him personally and, of course, for the industry at a large. Bala, thank you so much for joining us at Nivesh Mahakumbh, and congratulations on this remarkable milestone, 30 years in the asset management industry, and of course 30 years of your personal journey with it. It is indeed a testament to your leadership, vision, and unwavering commitment to investor education and financial empowerment. Thank you again for joining us, Bala.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be part of today's session. I think the 30-year journey has been interesting and very inspiring, and also seeing the growth, significant growth that we have witnessed. I think thanks to all of you and investors' confidence on the mutual industry and media in general, what you have done for the promoting Indian mutual industry to the large public.
Indeed, and we're looking forward to, well, gaining some lessons from your 30-year experience and reflecting on those 3 decades. Your contributions have shaped the landscape of asset management in India. But looking ahead, Bala, the next 30 years, they're poised to be equally, if not more, transformative. So as we move towards a Vijay Bharat, a victorious India, I want to know from you, what is your vision for the country, particularly through the lens of the Bharat series that you've initiated, and how do you envision the future of the asset management industry in India over the next 3 decades?
I think it's going to be, again, interesting journey. I think what you have taken 30 years to touch 55 lakh crore size. If you have taken next 30 years, the number will be 4 times or 5 times higher than that number. Because the today Indian mutual industry is well accepted by the investing public at large. People have started using mutual fund as a primary vehicle for their savings. And the experience of investing in mutual funds have been very, very enriching, encouraging for investors to continue their investment going forward. And that being the case, the next 30 years, you will see the rate of growth on customer addition. I'm not talking about AUM alone. Customer additions will become the largest. I would also assume the next 30 years, as today in the Indian citizens have got Aadhaar, everyone has got Aadhaar, everyone has got a bank account number, everyone would have a PAN number. The same way, in the 30 years, I'm not very sure whether I'll be there or not, but definitely in the 30 years, you will probably see every citizen of the country have got mutual fund investments with them. So that is where I see the roadmap shaping up.
Indeed. And we have seen such an expansion of retail investor participation in the market. So we definitely hope that more and more Indians join this movement of financial independence and look at mutual funds as a vehicle to achieve all of their goals in life and take India to the next level. And in that context, the role that Nivesh Mahakumbh plays in educating the investor audience, that's always been paramount. And it has become a unique proposition, Bala, in the industry, with this being, I believe, our 42nd edition. Now, Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC has been a pioneer in investor education, and you've been the driving force behind the immensely successful mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign. Now, given the current geopolitical and domestic dynamics, I want to understand from you, what message would you like to convey to investors today as they navigate these complex and uncertain times?
See, one thing has made it very clear when we looked at the mutual fund Sahi Hai, the launch in 2017, when we also set up a separate division under the leadership of Mr. K.S. Rao to drive the mutual fund investment education as a special initiative sometime in the year 2012-13. We never thought that mutual funds will become so large, and we never even thought that the industry will continue to grow to where we are today, despite all the uncertainties that would have prevailed along the way. I think when we started the journey 30 years back, we have seen many hurdles that would affect the sentiment in the market. Various developments like VUCA world, which came in 2008, 2009. We have seen technology crisis. We have seen stock market crashing. We have seen interest rates going up. We have seen banks getting closed down globally. And we have seen many such crises in the past. But despite all the uncertainties, what has remained permanent in the market is the growth. I think equity markets have been growing leaps and bounds to reach where they are today. The mutual fund industry also, customers have participation. Why it has happened? With the longer term, the power of compounding, that remains real. It's not fictitious. It remains real. The sense if you have put money 100 rupees, say 10 years back, where is the 100 rupees today? Definitely would have given about 14-15% CAGR return, at least the minimum side. It could vary from 10% to say 50%. That becomes real, at the encashable. That experience, my own belief is, even today's world, we have to, I think, keep that in mind. Nowhere we can expect a smooth ride. Nowhere expect a very calm world. I think uncertainty will come and go. Geopolitical risk will come. Suddenly you'll find companies not able to produce enough profit for them to justify their prices and so on and so forth. So this will always happen. I think from investors' point of view, definitely one has to keep that faith that in the long run, mutual funds will be the large beneficiary and they will give a good return. And that's something one has to have that belief, and basis one has to make investment. In fact, when we started the mutual fund Sahi advertisement, we were not sure are we getting the right message, because mutual fund subject to market risk is something we always given as a priority while communicating. We always try to hedge ourselves, saying it can go up and it can go down. Mutual fund always subject to risk. So that's why we used to tell people, therefore you take a decision on your own. But the moment you say mutual fund Sahi hai, but however, these are the risks are there. Therefore, understand this risk before making investment. Then it actually gives you more strength to your investment thesis. It's a good vehicle. Don't worry. But we will see a lot of risk on the way. But that is like you go on a road. If there is an accident, the next day you'll find one speed breaker will come. That will initially irritate, no doubt. But we'll get used to the speed breaker. Still, you drive fast. Again, you slow down, drive fast, slow down, right? This is a real life situation I'm giving. I think mutual fund also would have a similar kind of situation. Therefore, mutual fund Sahi hai, but uncertainty will always remain. If there is no uncertainty, there is no world. Therefore, uncertainty will always remain. But what remains permanent in the mutual fund is the power of compounding, is a single mantra.
Absolutely. And it reflects the journey in life that we all go through, Bala, because life is a series of ups and downs, but we navigate through it. And of course, make sure that we've planned our life better. And that's where financial independence becomes paramount. And that's where, as Bala has mentioned, mutual funds can be the right vehicle to deliver on all of your goals. Well, Bala, thank you so much for those enlightening insights and for setting the stage for what promises to be a day filled with knowledge and empowerment. Your vision for the future and your message to investors resonate deeply as we navigate these evolving financial landscapes. Thank you for joining us, Bala.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we are now entering the heart of our program, the panel discussions. Now, the goal is to provide actionable insights that you can implement in your financial journey. So let's begin with our journey. All right, as we gather to discuss the path to financial independence, we'll have a panel discussion, of course, but also let's take a closer look at the Nivesh Mahakumbh by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. This event, much like the Grand Kumbh Mela, brings together investors and experts to immerse in the wisdom of smart investing. So let's dive right in. Watch this video.
Millions of people take a dip in the holy river of Ganga during the celebrations of Mahakumbh to wash away their sins and pray for their well-being. At the Nivesh Mahakumbh of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund, thousands of eager investors take a dip as well, but for their financial well-being. This dip has been redefined as DIP, which highlights the importance of delayed gratification, impact of inflation, and power of compounding, which is often described as eighth wonder of the world. It is the largest confluence about spreading financial literacy and investor education, where the best investment experts interact and impart right knowledge to thousands of investors about personal finance, savings, and investment, and most importantly, how to avoid Ponzi schemes and investment frauds where many lose their hard-earned money. You can liken it to the Kumbh Mela, as the Nivesh Mahakumbh offers a similar immersive experience on the mantras of successful investing in mutual funds. Since 2013, Nivesh Mahakumbh has been held across the country, benefiting lakhs of investors, with millions of others being touched through media collaborations. The confluence of investment experts and investors has dotted the entire landscape of India. Nivesh Mahakumbh covers diverse subjects aimed at imparting the right investment knowledge and helping people achieve financial independence. These include managing financial independence, the impact of the union budget on our finances, how women and millennials can start their investment journey. On important days, Nivesh Mahakumbh is held keeping topical subjects in mind, like financial independence around Independence Day and resolutions and results in January last year, prodding investors to keep New Year resolutions around smart investing. In the last few months, Nivesh Mahakumbh has also dwelled on the subjects like holistic financial wellness and the path to financial freedom. Nivesh Mahakumbh is a great place to learn about new initiatives that help mutual fund investors take the right investment decisions and potentially get better inflation-adjusted returns. Each Mahakumbh is interactive in nature and also includes the innovative use of skits, games, and social media engagements. The participants are provided with easy-to-consume reading materials and magazines to carry as a ready reckoner. If financial liberation is your goal, then don't miss your annual pilgrimage to the Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund Nivesh Mahakumbh.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Well, indeed, the Nivesh Mahakumbh serves as a beacon of financial literacy and empowerment. And with the insights we've just seen, let's move forward in our journey towards achieving financial well-being here at our event. And with that, let's begin our series of panel discussions. Our first one is on wealth building strategies for women, and it's over to Mugdha for helming that.
an investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Imagine playing a game that not only entertains but also educates you about smart investing. Well, now you can. Introducing Fingo MF, a unique simulation-based investment gaming platform by Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Whether it is accumulating a retirement corpus, planning for an exotic vacation, thinking of a higher education overseas, it's important to plan for every stage of life, and that's where this game comes in. It takes you through that investing journey in various asset classes with respect to different risk profiles. What makes it fun and unique? Plan in a gamified way. Select from 4 strategic goals. Build long-term wealth. Invest for early retirement. Plan for major purchase. Save for kids' education. Play quizzes to test your knowledge. Engaging questions to boost your financial knowledge. Scan the QR code to get started.
An investor education and awareness initiative of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Very warm welcome to all of you. Today, we are talking about financial independence for women, how to make wealth for women. And I'm so delighted to be hosting the first panel of the day with some stellar experts. To just recap, financial independence, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of true freedom. And for women, diverse asset allocation can be a powerful tool in achieving this goal. Now, according to a Crystal report, the share of women in Indian mutual funds asset under management AUM has increased from about 15.2% in 2017 to about 20.9% in 2023. Now, this indicates a very positive trend towards greater financial literacy and inclusion among women, which is very crucial for the overall development of our society. And today, women can also take advantage of various investment options. Well, there are traditional equities, bonds to mutual funds, real estate investment trusts, REITs, which are interesting women in the last couple of years, gold ETFs, ESG funds that align with their values. Mutual funds, in particular, offer professional management and diversification, which makes it easier for women to invest in a wide range of assets without needing extensive financial expertise. Now, these diversified strategies provide stability and they optimize returns, which again is very crucial for women balancing career, family, personal aspirations. Some of them even take sabbaticals. So, what holds you and your money at that point in time and pushes it to grow and make more investments is a crucial piece of information. Now, by incorporating a mix of assets, and we are looking at an edge approach of that, which is evaluating opportunities, E, diversifying investments, generating returns, and ensuring growth. So that's short form for EDGE. And women can effectively manage risk and seize growth opportunities to empower them to take charge of their financial destinies. Now, today, we are honored to present a very distinguished panel of women leaders making significant strides in the financial industry. Let me introduce you to my panel today. Amrita Sirohia, co-founder and chief revenue officer at Indie Money, brings her expertise in leveraging technology to simplify financial management. Then we have Deepika Jaikishan. She's the co-founder of Basis, which is a platform dedicated to empowering women through financial education and personal investment solutions. Next up, Dilshad Bilimoria, founder, managing director, and chief financial planner at Dilza Consultants. She offers deep insights into comprehensive financial planning. And lastly, Kamayani Anirudhanagar. She is head of retail sales and distribution at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund and contributes her extensive experience in retail financial services. Now, this is a powerhouse of knowledge and inspiration for everyone who's watching, irrespective of their gender. But yes, today we are going to be talking a little more about how women can achieve financial independence with the tools that are available to them in the market today. Kamaini, let me start with you. Well, things have massively changed for women investors with financial literacy in the last few years. We are no longer having those conversations that, why are women not investing or what is stopping them from getting financially literate? Thank God for that. We have a lot of women now participating in their investment decisions and they're making very good progress. Yeah. But yes, there is a lot to be achieved, but women are realizing more than ever that mutual funds can be a strategic tool for achieving financial independence. What do you think has brought about this change? And how does it compare to other investment options in terms of accessibility and benefits?
Thanks, Mugdha. I think it's a great question that you have posed. It is obviously very clear that over the past decade or so, I think the way steps have been taken to promote financial literacy overall, not only among women, obviously has been a very good way in which we can see that people overall also have started taking their own financial independence, planning everything much more seriously. One of the best changes, like you said, that I can see is, of course, the fact that earlier when I used to approach a woman investor, the answer I used to get most of the time was that please talk to my husband, talk to my father, talk to my brother. They are the one who take the financial decisions. That's no longer the case. Women are more and more participating in their in financial decisions. Women are taking their own financial decisions, and I think overall the awareness that has been spread by, obviously the media has played a very large part. Amphi has played a very large part, and things have really started taking a very good shape in terms of being able to explain in simple language on how and what and where women can invest. So it's been a mixture of all of this that has helped in the financial literacy going forward. Also, I think if you talk about mutual funds specifically, I think the fintech platforms, the accessibility of everything digitally, the ease of investing in mutual funds has played a very large part in making sure that women also find it very simple to be able to just execute decisions and be able to do the participation without having to jump through hoops for anything. So in terms of accessibility, when you said whether it is a fixed deposit, whether it is a mutual fund investment, whether it is buying stocks, I think it's become so much simpler, it's become easier, it's become accessible, and everything is available at your fingertips, right? Everything is digital. That's what I think has promoted not only having more and more women participating also, but because also having, ease of transactions in general, making it a bigger pie for everyone.
And so very well put there, Kamani, because a lot of times we were wondering, women with that gender tech divide, how will they get access to these digital platforms? But thankfully times are changing. We do have a long way to go, because we do have a gender tech divide in the country. But the moment women are getting their hands on smartphones, the moment they are understanding what are the options available to them, it is life altering for the entire family. Let me get Amrita in here. Amrita, diversification in portfolio is key to managing every aspect of your investment. Having said that, when we look at the narrative that we are building around women who may be taking career breaks, who want to invest in options of their choices, of their liking, um, how do you think that mix should look like? I usually don't think that a mix is gender centric. But having said that, there are a lot of options in terms of policies that are available for women, which makes it more lucrative. So, if we could talk a little about that, how can women incorporate a mix of equities, bonds, REITs, or gold, and even ESG funds are getting their attention these days.
Sure. I think in terms of which asset class to choose, it's important for us to understand how each asset class really works, right? So, equity will typically give you very high growth, high volatility, and risk as well. So, you have to choose depending on your risk tolerance, you have to then decide whether you want how much equities you want to do, how much bonds you want to do. REITs, for example, gives you exposure to real estate without really directly owning the property. Gold is again something that will hedge against inflation and also currency devaluation. ESG funds, for example, focus on companies with strong environmental and social impact. So, depending on what really your goal with the investment is, and what you need to understand before diversification is what is the asset class going to do for me, and then maybe create a sample portfolio for yourself to say, okay, if this is my goal, if my goal is to achieve X return and this is how much risk I can take, then this should be my ideal portfolio allocation. And in those things, I think what you should consider is tax efficiency and also factor macroeconomic trends. For example, during economic expansion, equities and REITs may perform better than bonds or gold, while bonds and gold may provide safety during contractions or inflationary period. So depending on these factors, one can easily look at which asset class to invest in or how to diversify.
As they say, it has to be a mix of everything, and it has to be aligned with the not just your goals, but I guess also your risk appetite. That also becomes so important these days.
Very true.
Deepika, if I may get you in, I want to talk about ESG funds that are increasingly aligning with the values of women investors. We are also seeing a lot of women getting into the social sector, and are more committed to these causes. How do these funds fit into the broader investment goals of women, and what potential do they hold for future growth?
I think around that question, Mugda, building a platform for women, for the longest time, what we have noticed is the fact that women, for one, aren't always prioritizing returns, which is quite uncanny as compared to men, but women aren't prioritizing returns. Women are prioritizing financial goals, they are prioritizing investments that fit into their, the principles they follow, the ethics they follow, the ethos they follow. And I think funds fit perfectly well into women's portfolios in the long term. I think more from an asset allocation perspective, as things like pan out, we have more visibility on more regulations, etc., around ESG funds. But they are becoming increasingly popular in India, especially for women who prioritize sustainability and ethical practices in investment choices. Because often enough, we've heard women, like I've had women say, I don't want to invest in funds that maybe invest in tobacco manufacturing companies, right? Or I do not want to invest in funds which, in similar such choices that women want to make. So when something like an ESG fund or the option comes in for a woman, it's very relevant because she's focusing on issues like environmental sustainability. She's a mom, she's a wife, she's a daughter, she's thinking about long term, about the country. It's funny just the way women think about stuff that men don't even factor in their investment choices. Women are thinking about social equity, corporate governance, and all of this, as it's becoming even more popular in public discourse and government policy, it will contribute to the evolution of more women making choices of ESG funds in their portfolio. And ESG funds, honestly, they just resonate with personal values, right? They help you to contribute to societal progress while also achieving financial goals. And that's like a perfect mix when it comes to what you want to do with your money. They also invest in companies that are committed to environmental conservation, fair labor practices, transparent governance. So this really aligns with women who, and we're seeing, I mean, there's so much news in the recent last 10 days, kind of different from what we're talking about, but women are speaking about a lot of things a lot more louder. And just and when I became a mom, I realized that life event just changed the way I started investing my money. And this is happening to a lot of women these days. Also, when it just comes to the potential of ESG funds, it's quite significant, right? India is focusing on the sustainability agenda through things like renewable energy development, gender diversity in corporate boards, and more improved corporate governance standards. So as these gain momentum, ESG funds are likely to deliver both financial returns and a positive social impact.
Wonderful. Kamayani, you want to chip in on that?
Yes, I think one of the biggest differences that I've seen between women investors and men investors is that women normally tend to have long-term goal-based planning. Okay, so like Deepika very rightly said, I don't think women only prioritize returns. Women prioritize what is their goal in the long term, and how they can plan better for a long-term investment. How they can have a particular goal in mind, which would normally for women be either around the family or around something that they want to do going forward. So in terms of goal based investing, I have seen women being much better off in terms of long term and goal based investing versus men.
Right. Let me come to Dilshad and also speak to her about the sentiment that women work with, because we just spoke about this one particular aspect of it where women are more committed to causes, and they feel more strongly about things. But Dilshad, we have seen that staying informed about the market, staying informed about investment tools, staying informed in totality with your financial literacy bit is very important. But women have busy schedules. They are working, juggling a couple of things. There are newer products that come into the market which they are not able to sort of experience or find more information on. How do you stay on top of this game? How do women educate themselves more, and how important is the role of a financial planner there?
Great. So thank you for having me on this panel, Mukta and Hindustan Times and Aditya Birla. It's a pleasure. So I think, yeah, this is a very important aspect that we are, facing with our own couple clients. What we do is we encourage the ladies to be present in all our review meetings. So it could start, and they could be a housewife, they could be married, they could have their, so it is difficult trying to schedule their time kind of commitment. But the conversations that come up and the kind of arguments or the kind of decision making that comes, which you can't otherwise see when you're just entering data, say on a data sheet. I think that has brought about a lot of important aspects when it comes to taking life decisions on their financial matters. So it could be, for example, the household expenses. A woman might say that, this is far too much what my husband has entered, it could be lesser. And she would really know because she's the one who's managing the budget at home. And similarly, for example, a goal like education versus marriage. Again, we've seen a lot of discussions that happen where the woman says, no, I think you need to give priority on education over marriage for our children. So these kind of healthy discussions, and sometimes I've noticed that the most practical solutions come from the woman, and even from the woman homemaker. This is why we encourage that these joint discussions and couple discussions are done. So we try and ensure that during the reviews that both are present to discuss the same.
Now, that is so important. Giving women the agency and the opportunity, both together, is so important, because a lot of times we see that women are not able to. They are making money, but they don't have charge of their money, right? They make the money, but then it is somebody else in the family who is deciding what investment tools should be utilized,
Absolutely.
etc.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Amrita, we briefly spoke about mutual funds here, but what strategies should women adopt to maximize their returns with effectively managing their risks as well? And the risks are also associated with their life goals and what they are wanting from life. So, say if we take an average woman, let's just give it a little more anecdotal example. If you take an average person who is a younger person, and say somebody who's in the age span of 30 to 40, and say a woman who is over 50. Let's keep the marital status apart if they are, because a lot of women do not want to be identified just with that. But say we have these three age groups, they could be married, they may not be married, but how do they navigate through this time with the help of mutual funds?
So I think mitigate. So there are two questions that you've posed, Mugda. One is obviously how to maximize returns, and the second is how do you manage risk, right? So you have to have a strategy. Like for maximizing return, you need asset allocation. You need to know your risk tolerance, how much risk you're willing to take, what kind of returns you're targeting, and basis that there are plethora of funds available. Diversify within the funds, diversify if you're doing direct equities, diversify with securities to mitigate risk. Specifically, I think there's some very simple tools used, like you can have your risk tolerance assessment done again and again to say, okay, if I call myself aggressive, was I really aggressive? Am I able to tolerate this kind of risk? Or should I be putting my money more towards bonds because I'm not able to handle the risk? Also rebalance the portfolio, because what happens with market movement, while you thought you want to keep it balanced, but because equities have gone up, your portfolio is still again risk heavy. So keep rebalancing, keep re-looking at your portfolio. The other way of mitigating risk is don't buy low quality investments. Look at large caps, look at balanced funds, look at high quality investments other than mutual funds. If you're not such a risk taker, you can even look at dividend paying, dividend yielding funds. I think the key here is to stay informed, continuously monitor how your portfolio is performing. If there is underperformance, question why. Why is it underperforming? What can I do to maximize return and reduce risk? Adjust from changes in your own life. If your income is going up, you've got bonus, so keep your strategy aligned to your life changes. And I think apart from this, avoid timing the market. Like a lot of time
Of
people
course.
end up taking higher risk because they think they will time the market. So avoid timing the market, and also don't get emotional with your investments, right? If something is underperforming, question and exit. Don't say, oh, maine to liya tha, ab to I'll wait till it. So, don't get emotional with your holdings. Take a call, decide, okay, not working for me, let me try something else. Give it the time you decided to give it, and exit. So have a exit strategy. Yeah, I think those will be the keys.
Lovely, because I can segue with this to my next question to Kamaini. Kamaini, I think what we just heard was also the typical challenges women can face, right? And talking about challenges, um, women get into the investment, but then of course, as you rightly mentioned, is there a review happening? Is there a rebalancing happening? Are you going back to your portfolio and saying, all right, अब ये कर लिया है तो अब तो मुझे ये करना ही पड़ेगा, that kind of a thing. But what do you think are the classic challenges that women face when they look at long-term financial planning? And we do know there is a huge wealth gap. So how can they overcome these obstacles, to continuously build wealth as far as their capability and also as far as men?
I think largely it is about systematic investing. All right. So, like you said, there is definitely a wealth gap, or there could be other commitments that are there for the woman on being able to, spare or having disposable income. I think systematic investment is a great way for anybody to build their portfolios. I will completely agree with Dilshad that a quarterly review of the portfolio is extremely important. A minimum quarterly, you need to go back, check your portfolio. What could be impeding a long-term planning could be maybe having requirement of funds, which obviously somehow I have a feeling women always get more emotional about their investments than anything else, and you have a tendency to try and do the best for everybody other than your own portfolio. So sometimes you have the temptation to break your portfolio, or to be able to stop the investment before time, before the necessary time period is over. So I think what is most important is to have a systematic plan in mind, have a step up plan in mind. So we today have daily SIPs also, which are possible. There are weekly SIPs that are possible in mutual funds. It is so simple to just put in that X amount that you can spare on a daily basis, irrespective of whether you're earning, whether you're a housewife. It doesn't matter. The point is to be able to spare that little thing, to spare that amount that you can, and then do that systematic investment. And also step it up as and when your income increases. I think in long term goal based financial planning, this is one of the best ways to increase the portfolio. This is one of the best ways to ensure that you are able to put in that required amount at the necessary disciplined time. I think that is one of the best ways in which we can get women to continue their investments and to put the right things in perspective for them.
True. Deepika, I want you to chime in on that. I think what happens is that women only start very later in life, to look at their financials from the point of view of investment, right? I think there has to be, of course, financial literacy is so important, but I think that financial awakening that women should actually start investments much early in their lives, because that is likely to give them more time to create that wealth is so important. But what are the when you meet clients, what is the average age, and do you think there needs to be a movement for that average age to sort of go down, and girls and younger ladies and females should actually start their journey sooner?
I think great question, Mugda. I think each one of us will have a similar, if not the same answer to this if you were to pose this question to all of us. I think average age wise, I pretty much it's anyone between the ages of 30 to 35, right? And the time a woman really starts thinking about her money, unfortunately, is when a life event occurs. The life event could be, hey, I just completed my master's. Now I have this education loan and I've started working. What should I do about it? Life event could be getting married. Life event could be losing a parent and, there's some inheritance and I need to start planning for it. Or life event could be like having a child or a divorce, right? So it's so many different life events, unfortunately, that nudge women to start thinking about their money. I think literacy is doing a good job. And at basis, that's literally what we do, right? We're focused on literacy, getting women to know what to do before they actually get about doing stuff with regard to their money. However, what I'm increasingly noticing in the Gen Z or the younger millennials, which is kind of a good thing, is that women are talking about investments, right? Unfortunately, as we always say, the folks advising them on those investments are men. Like I'll give you a very quick example. I have a young cousin. She's a doctor. I mean, she's a dentist, and out of nowhere, and a few years ago, she reached out to me. We started doing some SIP. She reviews them once a year with me. She suddenly called me and she's like, somebody's telling me to invest in these 5 stocks. And my first question to her was, why? Like, why do you want to do it? And she didn't have an answer to the why. Right. So I think I'm noticing this a lot with women. You listen to the men or others in your life, which is not a bad thing, but what they want to do with their money is so different from you. And I was like, do you know 3 out of these 5 stocks could go bust? Do you know the risk associated with it, etc.? And she's like, oh, I didn't know. And unfortunately that happens way too much, and far so with the younger gen, which is also kind of rebellious. I think women in the 30s to like mid 35, I mean 35 40s, we still involve our partners or some man in our life, even if our decision is almost independent. But the younger generation, with this sense of rebellion, is making choices that may not favor them in the future, more so women, I think, which is why this literacy angle needs to double up. Of course, being relevant to, I mean, I don't know how many of the Gen Zs will be plugging into this room today to listen to us, but I'm pretty sure there's a whole bunch of others. And I think this experience of literacy or awareness for them has to be customized to just the way they want to listen to stuff.
Wonderful. Some excellent points there. Amrita, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I just want to make a point that I think that the shift has happened. I think today, the Gen Zs, and the Gen X, they are investing way sooner than I ever started, right? So I think that I see that with the kind of people who are even investing on IND money. I see the age groups shift have happened. They are already holding demat accounts way before I or you did, right? And they are way more aware of their options today. Although obviously the younger generation want to make quick buck, they want to make money fast, and markets have been supportive. So whether they understand the risk tolerance, etc., is questionable. But the fact that they are investing, and they want to do more with their money is a shift that I see with the data that I look at almost daily. That shift has definitely happened. I have a 14-year-old. He is already very interested in what's happening and where to invest, etc. So I think that shift has happened also thanks to the entire awareness, social media exposure, etc., that the Gen Zs have, that they are more aware of their options, and the ways and means have become way easier. A lot of platform like IND Money, etc., have made it very convenient for them to even buy a US stock, Indian stocks, bonds. It's become way easier to execute. So because of all these reasons, I think there is a shift that has happened.
I will completely agree with her. I think it is very like I also have a 14-year-old who is very keen that whatever amount of money his grandparents give him, I should invest in the market for him. So I think it is so simple now that people, the awareness has gone up so much, and he actually asks me, "Have you invested my money? Are you going to just keep it? And can you show me my portfolio? How do I believe that you have invested my money?" So on and so forth. So I think it has really helped. The awareness has really gone up, and I think compared to us, I think the first time I understood what a check looks like was when I actually started studying about it in college, because we were never exposed, right, to all of this. But now I think it is our responsibility, and also our kids are much more aware, because I think whether it is banking, whether it is the basics of financial literacy, I think we are doing a great job at being able to start them off really early. And no age is
Yeah.
a younger age. I think you can start immediately, as soon
No,
as you
very
can
well put.
actually.
No, very well said, Kamini and Amrita. Interestingly, I'm 45 now, and and I used to beat myself down that hey, I wish I would have started at 19 or 20 when I was younger, and but then I tell myself that not many options were available then. The
Yes.
technology wasn't the way it is right now. Man, the markets weren't as bullish and
Absolutely.
as good. The economy, so I take that time and I say, all right, Mugdha, it's not as bad. But with the younger lot, I feel that if today they are not investing, if today they are not making most of the opportunities that are available to them to financially secure their future, gosh, what a waste. Because now there are opportunities, the technology is allowing you to do that sitting at home. You can put in money, you can see your money, you can monitor how it's doing, you can do the transactions. So there's so many options available. But having said that, जहाँ बहुत options है वहाँ पे complications भी हो जाते हैं. So Dilshad, I want you to chip in from your experience. What are some of the common financial planning mistakes that you see women making today? And to the ones who are watching, what some of the tips that they can take home about the mistakes that perhaps they're not recognizing at the moment, but are mistakes.
Right. So I think just to add quickly to what was said earlier, while everyone is saying that we need to invest and the markets are doing well and awareness is increased, I think understanding that the markets are doing well in the last 2 years, and that may not, the double-digit returns that people are seeing may not continue at the same level. Right. So
True.
understanding and awareness and financial literacy of that is a very, very important point to take back. When we sometimes get clients who say that, hey, I used to get my friend has got 25% or 30%, and you're giving me only 18%. Right. So I think that they don't, their level of return has gone much higher. So I think it's important to realize that you shouldn't be looking at someone else. I think, like Deepika had pointed out as well, right? So what are their objectives and goals are very important. Sorry, what was your other question, Mukta?
My question was around the most common mistakes that women
Yeah.
make. I
Yeah.
mean, with options, with so many options available, also, you might get confused. So, a lot of time FOMO
Yeah.
happens, as you just
Yes,
rightly said.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what are some of the things that they can, safeguard themselves from?
Yeah. So I think the simple
I think
I
we
think
have
we lost.
if I
a
start.
tech issue. Dilshad. Yeah, Dilshad, I can hear you.
So I said it's as simple as the power of compounding. So many people don't realize that if they start early, that it's like the eighth wonder of the world, and it's your money can just grow, provided you have that time horizon of staying invested. Another myth is that sometimes women feel that they are not making the right financial decisions or the right investment choices. And I think that is again a misnomer, right? So the more that people join in meetings and the more that there is financial literacy, and like I said, it's not like a rocket science, right? It's a simple thing of saying that, okay, this is where I put my money, this is how it's going to grow, and this is so realizing the fact that they have an important, equally important decision making power in the family is something again that they need to be aware of, right? Women, because sometimes they feel just because they're housewives and just because they're not earning, they are not allowed to contribute to the financial decisions of the family. And that's something that we've seen. What we try and do is to create a small fund just in their name, despite whatever amount is already being built towards the family's retirement portfolio. So this will give them one, the ability to ask questions: how is it performing, where is my money being invested, which is a practical financial literacy that we are trying to apply. And at the same time, we ask them, like, ask as many questions as possible, because that is where you will realize best that this is the kind of tenure, this is the risk profile, this is the asset allocation. Long term means equity, short term means debt, gold, etc. Right? So I think these are important aspects to allow the women also to start realizing that they can contribute to the same.
I think very importantly, I think Amrita touched on this, that don't go by hearsay. Or I think Deepika touched on it, saying that don't go by, when she was talking about her cousin, don't go by what you hear, which may not suit you. I think one of the biggest pitfalls today any investor makes is to go by only by hearsay, or by thinking that social media is the best educator only. I think it's important to know what you need out of your investment. It's important to know what your risk profile is. It's important to know what kind of risk you can take. It's important to know what kind of asset class you need to be exposed to. Whether equity suits you, whether a hybrid suits you, whether something in between debt and an equity will suit you, a combination will suit you. So it's very important for any investor, specifically for women, not to go by hearsay or to go by what the decisions they hear happening around them, but to look at their own risk profile, what their goal for the money is, and then make a decision on how they want to invest. So I think that's a very important point, and a big mistake that people make is to get influenced very easily, instead of trying to understand and then take their decisions.
Yeah, see, I think these are also complex things, right? Like financial investments, they involve a lot of jargons. You do get lured by certain tips that you get, etc. It's okay to get some professional help to say, कि ठीक है मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा. Maybe I can check, I can get help of someone who understands, someone in the family, someone, a banker, or someone. And then maybe do your own research to say, okay, can I validate what is being advised to me? Like what someone mentioned about the 5 stock example, right? Can I validate this? And then, take a more informed decision. So I think it's a fair thing to say that while you get help, trust your own research a little, try and at least do it. If not, then also it's absolutely okay to take help, right? We all take help for taxes, right? We have a CA. We don't understand how to efficiently manage tax, or doctors for our health. So why not for portfolio? I think it's absolutely okay to get a professional to explain or educate.
No, absolutely, because today we are seeing so many women financial advisors, and they have more idea of what a person's life is going to go through, and perhaps they also know the kind of breaks, and also the breaks they are likely to take, or they perhaps understand the psyche a little more better, and then they're able to advise. Also, I think there are so many government-led policies and bonds that are introduced from time to time, which women otherwise will not have any idea about, because on a regular basis you are not perhaps staying so tuned with what is happening in the financial world while doing your job. So I think the role of a financial advisor becomes very important then, or you need to find your sources that can keep you ahead of the game. um Deepika, I'm going to have you have the last word. What is the kind of advice that you will give to younger women who are just beginning to invest? And of course, when we speak about younger women, I think please also specify how young can a woman be to start her investment journey.
You're on mute.
Deepika, you're on
I
mute.
mean,
I guess we
women
can't
can
hear
be
you.
as young as 18. They can be as
Yeah, we could hear
started
you
on
now.
her
We could hear you now.
investment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could hear you. There was a slight delay, but we can hear you. Go ahead, Deepika. We can hear you.
I think I heard 18.
Yes, I did hear 18 as well. I'm just hoping that Deepika gets in. Amrita, you want to chime in
Oh, now?
till we get. Oh, yes, we can.
Okay. Um, so I think, yeah, women can be as young as 18 just to take control of their money, but they can also be as young as 60 to take control of their money. I have a 2-year-old. Um,
Right. So,
Yeah, sure. I think, okay.
until yeah,
I think
maybe
there's a bit of
Deepika
a
is back.
lag at your end. Yes,
no lag.
Dilshad,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, Deepika, maybe when
Yeah.
the connection is better. So we have a checklist which we share, 18 things at 18. And it's really helpful to someone who's just becoming a major, right, from a minor. So it could be like update your status in the bank, update your KYC, ensure that nominations are in place. You will need to have your own bank account, create a PAN card, update your Aadhaar, right? So, and then start investing into two simple asset classes, so debt and equity, right? So you don't need so much advice when it comes to when you're just starting your first investment, but I think the important thing is to take that first step. So the first step could be saying that I will start a small investment in equity and debt, so that one, I'm ensuring asset allocation is happening, and two, and I'm starting so early. So these are important kind of things we say, like take up a health insurance, take up a term plan, because imagine the premium that you'd be paying when you're just 18, and you're paying it, till you're getting a cover till you're 75, 80. So these simple kind of sessions is what we have sometimes with the kids as well when they just become majors.
Yeah, I
Deepika, we
think,
have you back. I'm going to take a chance. Amrita, you want to chime in first, and then we go
yeah,
to
I was
Deepika
just
and
saying
have
that
the final last word.
I was just saying that age is not a factor. I think when you start earning your own money, when you start saving your own money, save it wisely. Make your earnings work for you better by investing better. And, kindergarten fees should be small. So when you're learning, learn with smaller, take smaller risk, learn with smaller money, and then graduate. So that is my only advice to the younger generation out there. Don't experiment with your parents' money, earn your own money and start investing.
I know I have a little bit of a contra view on that. I think whenever whatever you are saving from whatever your pocket money also, I believe you can start experimenting a little with that as well, as long as it doesn't mean that you have to go back and ask your parents again and again for more pocket money. But
She's a
other than
gentle
that, I
mother.
think you can start much faster.
These are all instructions being given to the kids in the house. I am totally
Yes.
getting it. All right,
Yeah.
Deepika, you are back, and we have your audio clear. So let's give you the last word.
Yeah, I think explore, of course, within the right, understand risk and then explore. We the kind of platforms we have, whether it's I&D Money or whether it's a platform like Basis to Learn, or whether it's Aditya Birla, I know you go onto their literacy tool and there's a ton to learn. I think first start with your learning journey on your own and explore. You have to make mistakes. The only way you're going to fix and make the right investments is if you make mistakes. And I think something that I didn't do is learn from the mistakes of others. Learn from the mistakes of others. There are plenty of them making them, and a lot of people are very vocal about the investment mistakes they've been making. So don't make them for yourselves. Learn from those, and I think just enjoy the experience of investing. Women tend to get overwhelmed. Tend to take too much stress on ourselves as we do in most other things in life. But enjoy investing, and it's just a fun journey. I think over the ages and stages, I've realized how fun it is to tweak your portfolio or make significant changes when events happen, like buying a house or getting married or going in for a master's. It's just a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun when you are paying your bills, contrary to what people think. As women, we like to pay our bills. So yeah, take charge of your money, enjoy the process of investing, and yeah, just grow your wealth over time.
Wonderful, wonderful. And be great mothers who teach investment to their sons and daughters really early in life. um, Thank you so much, ladies,
Thank you.
for this wonderful panel, and for giving your views and so many insights. Thank you so much. This was lovely.
Thank
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 you.
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 Thank you for
It's
having
been
us.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, today's discussion has highlighted the importance of informed investment strategies tailored to women's unique financial goals and challenges. And we have learned financial empowerment is not just about having money, it's about how you control your money, manage it, invest it, grow it, and the psyche and the temperament that goes in making a great financial investment mindset, right? So let's take these lessons forward as we continue our journey towards financial independence. And now it is over to Gotham for another insightful panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Mukta. Indeed, you guys have provided a few cues for us for a second panel discussion. When you mentioned you wish you had started your investment journey early, I'm in the same boat,
I
and I'm sure
know.
many others. So it is a thought that many of us had in our time. I'm sure the next generation, well, they've started to think about this early now that, well, the markets are on a high, and of course you have so many technological platforms enabling the investment journey to begin in early. So our next panel discussion is going to focus on the contours of that for young earners, of course, and see what financial independence can bring about to their life journey. Stay tuned. Well, for young earners, financial independence isn't just about earning a paycheck. It is about building a solid foundation for the future. Strategic asset allocation, particularly through mutual funds, that presents an excellent opportunity for those starting their earning journey. Now, these strategies combine the potential for high returns from equities with the stability offered by bonds, mutual funds, real estate, and even newer options like peer to peer lending. Now, mutual funds give young earners access to a diversified portfolio managed by professionals, allowing them to invest with relatively lower capital while benefiting from the expertise of seasoned fund managers. Now, sector funds, which focus on industries like technology, healthcare, or renewable energy, offer young investors the chance to capitalize on growth opportunities in these dynamic sectors. By starting early with a well diversified portfolio, young investors can harness the power of compounding, setting a strong foundation for long term wealth creation. Well, here at the Nivesh Mahakumbh, we are excited to introduce to you a panel of experts who are at the forefront of guiding young earners towards financial success. Let me bring them in now, starting with Harsh Goela, founder of Goela School of Finance. He's known for his engaging and educational approach to financial literacy. We also have with us Amit Bibalkar, founder of Sapient Finserv Private Limited. He specializes in crafting wealth management strategies tailored to the needs of young investors. And joining in is Manish Taneja, co-founder and chief distribution officer at Z Funds, which focuses on simplifying mutual fund investments for young professionals. Also with us is Deepak Yadav. He is the head of passive business at Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. And of course, completing this stellar lineup of speakers is Milan Bavishi, Director of Content at Stocks, who will guide our viewers with his over 2 decades of experience in equity markets. Gentlemen, great to have you with us. We have been actively talking about starting the investment journey as early as possible, though there were cues to this in the previous panel discussion as well. In this panel discussion, we hope to expand on a few of those talking points and guide young investors ahead. Harsh, I'll start with you. We all know that starting early with investments can set the stage for financial success. What do you think? Why do you think, rather, it is so important for young earners to begin investing as soon as possible? And in your opinion, how can mutual funds help them build a strong financial foundation?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for this event. And for me, any student or college student or someone who's very early in their career, first step what they need to learn is how to manage money, right? Wherein with their money they know this is the money that they want to have fun with, this is the money they want to reinvest in themselves, this is the money they want to invest for their future for the long term. And it is so crucial for them to understand this because of the fact that once someone just starts with mutual funds, and that too simple passive index mutual funds, the return and the compound return long term are extremely strong, and this gives a very strong edge to that student for the rest of his life. So for me, the best and the easiest way to start for any student is not to wait for the perfect time, not to wait for him or her to learn the entire stock markets and then start. Rather, start off with passive mutual funds and slowly and steadily keep building on your knowledge, keep building on your finances, and moving on.
Absolutely. All right. Amit, let me come to you for your perspective on this, because young earners often have limited budgets. They are, of course, now more than ever eager to start investing. So, what innovative approaches can they take to diversify their investment portfolios without needing much capital? We need to start somewhere. The idea sometimes is that we feel, oh, it's not that much. I'm earning a very lower salary. So, what good is it going to do right now? Starting that journey as early as possible, the need for it, the strategies required for it. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, hi Gautam, and hi everyone, and thank you for having us on the show. I think Gautam, more importantly, the biggest change what I have seen in our generation and the millennial and the Gen Z generation is that instead of savings, expenses have taken precedence. So the first and foremost thing is income minus savings is equal to expenditure. That has to be drilled into all the millennials curriculum. We have been taught income minus expenses is savings, and that is what we try to put as the savings into funds. But what this generation needs to really think of is income minus expenses is savings. They're trying to get into these credit card traps. They're trying to get into these zero EMI traps. And mind you, whenever you have something which is free, like zero interest, you are the product. So before buying the next iPhone on a 6-month free EMI, just try to think that if you can save that money, even if it is 1,000 rupees a month, that can really create a very good corpus going forward. People don't really feel the power of a small SIP, how much can it actually deliver over long periods of time. If you really try to look at this 6,600 rupees a month, say at 15% CAGR over 20-year period, Gautam makes you 1 crore. So it's not about the amount at all. It's just that you need to have that discipline and you need to keep on continuing it for long periods of time. I've seen a lot of my young investors. Uh, they are of the opinion that they don't need to buy a house because the job can take them anywhere. But they are very cognizant of the fact that medical is going to be one big expense for them, and the life goal for them is traveling. The life goal for them is spending money on luxury products, but the priority for them definitely is medical. I think that's the
Hmm.
key change. So even a small SIP over long periods of time will be needed actually for your medical expenses going forward, the way inflation is taking that up.
Absolutely. And you've raised a great point here, because most of the time it's the lack of definition of a goal which creates a problem. I faced that issue when starting my investment journey, when my financial advisor asked me about what my goals are, and I had to really sit and figure out how exactly is my money going to enhance my life. And buying something just for the short term pleasure of it is not exactly a goal that many of us look for. As you mentioned, there's health to take care of, there is retirement to take care of, many of the broader goals which we first need to set, and then maybe we start looking at these little goals where it's either a vacation or you want to buy a new phone. Those come into picture. So great point raised there, Amit. We'll come back to you on some other points. In the meanwhile, Manish, let me ask your perspective on balancing risk and reward, because that is crucial in any investment strategy. So I want to understand from you, what strategies can young earners use to achieve this balance in their portfolios, and how mutual funds can help in this process?
Right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting us. Uh, I'll just take a minute to explain what is risk and what is it that we need to keep in mind. So, it's an old cliche: whether you drink water in Bangalore, Barabanki, or Boston, the formula remains H2O. Similarly, the risk-return trade-offs remain same, irrespective of which geography or which asset class you're investing in. So you need to keep in mind, every time you're looking for a higher return, you are building in risk in the portfolio. And by risk, I mean not only the returns not accruing, but the principal not growing in real terms, or principal even eroding. And the corollary of that is that if something's given you a higher return over the last 1, 2, 3 years, please understand it's carrying a lot of risk in it. To give you a simple example, the risk-free return, if we were to say in India, is the rate at which the government of India can borrow, which is right now 6.85% for 10 years. Anything that you're looking to achieve over and above that, you have to start with the assumption that you're building risk in the portfolio, and the returns that you chase will always have risks in them. And anything that has given a higher return over the last 2, 3 years, and if you think that's going to continue to happen in the coming years, has a lot of risk built in. So that's the first thing. That's a thumb rule we always need to keep in mind when we are building a portfolio. Now, how do we manage this risk? At the end of the day, not doing anything is also a risk. Your money gets eroded in real terms if you don't invest. The free lunch of risk management, as they say, is diversification. It's an old way, the way we were taught when we were growing up. When you're traveling in a bus or in a train or public transport, don't keep all your money in one pocket, keep it in two pockets. So diversification is the free lunch of risk management. So diversify across asset classes. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, and diversify. Mutual funds are a great way of diversifying, not only across asset classes, but also within the asset classes. So when you do a diversified equity mutual fund, you are basically participating in multiple companies. So important thing, the sooner we realize this, and I know there is a lot of recency bias and a lot of our investors come and say, oh, this fund's given this much return in the last 1 year, why don't we put more money in this? We always need to keep in mind that anything that gives a high return has a lot of risk built in, and as you chase higher returns, you are building in risk in the portfolio. And the best way to manage risk, one of the better ways of managing risk, and like I said, it's a free lunch of risk management, is diversify across asset classes, diversify across instruments, and if possible, diversify across geographies. And mutual funds are a fantastic product to start your journey of diversification.
Absolutely. So the point here is that you should have a thali of options, as you say, when you're having your lunch. And as you mentioned, diversification is the free lunch for risk management. That's a quotable quote right there. I believe Amit had something to add there. Amit, I believe you're on mute. If you can unmute yourself. I still can't hear Amit. So maybe there's some audio issues which we need to correct there. We'll get that sorted. We'll get your perspective in, Amit.
Am I audible, Gautam?
Yes, you are right now. Your thoughts.
Just to extend, when you actually sort the returns of funds and then buy based on the last 1 year return, I would put a corollary to it that you are actually taking advance of your salary, which you will need to pay back. Means if you have got chunky returns in the past 1 year, it means that you are going to get muted returns over the next 2-3 years. So it's like the Diwali advance, wherein if you have got money upfront, that means that you will have to repay either by time correction or by price correction. So that's what I wanted to add with what Manish was saying on the risk and reward perspective.
Absolutely. And from my experience, I've seen how funds react. And the idea is to see how those funds react to different types of market cycles. Because sometimes the views get distorted when you mention recency bias, when you see the performance of the fund for the past 1 or 2 years. But if you've got a goal which is 5 to 10 years, then you see how that fund is responding according to market conditions. And maybe you might get a different picture. So the idea is you get all the information that you can in judging the right kind of funds to suit the right kind of goals. But sometimes you need a coach for that. You need an expert who can advise you on that. Milan, let me come to you for a question on this, which is that while we agree that mutual funds provide young investors with access to diversified portfolios at a relatively low cost, the question is, what are the key advantages of professional management for these investors? Sometimes you need a guide. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. You're completely right, because see, when you give money, hard-earned money to a mutual fund, there is a fund manager who has experience, who has resources at his hand, and plus a lot of knowledge with which he will be managing your money. So vis-a-vis an individual investor who may not have that kind of time, expertise, and knowledge to do that. So definitely, mutual funds there become a preferred choice. Also, mutual funds based on their experience have understood risk management, and that is the reason, if you see, there are mutual funds which are diversified across market cap. There are mutual funds which give exposure to different sectors, and finally, uh, it could be even diversification among different asset classes. In addition to that, a young investor who has just started earning, he's going through challenges at his job. There could be challenges or demand for his time or his or her time in his personal life. So he may not have enough time to monitor the markets, to monitor the investment, and this is where the mutual funds take up all the burden. And this burden is taken at such a small cost that I don't think any young investor would mind paying for, given the time and effort the mutual fund puts in managing her money.
Absolutely,
On
and
top
that's
of
what the
it,
expense ratio is also. It clearly shows what is the cut sort of going to the mutual fund expert who is managing your money. So go ahead, Milan. You had some points to add there.
yeah, and one final point here is the discipline aspect which mutual fund bring in through the process called SIP. Otherwise it's very difficult even for a, a senior person to be so disciplined that invest one portion of his monthly income, his or her monthly income every month, in an SIP. So in essence this also brings in discipline. And we come across so many young investors who've just started earning, and they from the first salary itself they've started their SIP.
So it's great to hear that young investors have started journey early, and as you mentioned, SIP brings in that discipline where a part of your paycheck is going towards securing your future and maybe opening up new opportunities. Especially as sometimes folks, they think about fire, financial income, retire early. So maybe your money is going towards making sure you do what you want to do. Retirement doesn't mean you don't work; it just means you work where you want to. So the idea is once you get into that discipline, a lot of opportunities open up. All right, let's discuss some nuances in this, and let me bring in Deepak for his perspective, because Deepak, from the options, the universe of options which are available currently, right? The thought also, especially for young investors who want to know more, where they say, index funds is fine, but there are so many growth opportunities when it comes to sectors or themes. Maybe I want, as part of my diversification, some investment on that side. So your thoughts, Deepak, on how young earners can capitalize on growth opportunities in, say, specific sectors such as technology or defense or healthcare or renewable energy through sector specific mutual funds. Your thoughts on this, Deepak?
All right. So when I look at India's growth story, and I'll jump straight into it, I see that we are sitting on top of a very rich demographic dividend. And there are two major enablers to this demographic dividend really playing itself out in the next 10, 20, or 30 years. And the first element is very naturally the fact that, from the last 10 odd years, we've been on a Make in India drive within our country. So the beneficiary of this is the specialty manufacturing theme. When I look at it in terms of sectors like healthcare, in terms of both drugs and equipment, semiconductor and technology products, chemicals and batteries, defense and aerospace, these are some of the themes that the government has to a degree pushed ahead by linking them to production linked incentives, which effectively implies that to a degree the government is providing the tailwinds these sectors need to do the right amount of capex and grow from being fairly small sectors in India today to capturing a bigger share of the global pie. So I think these, when you are talking about in terms of specific sectors, these are growth sectors for India, and they are growth sectors not just because we have the capability to manufacture these, but the capex is being encouraged by the government through this PLI scheme. So that's one part of this growth engine when I look at how India is going to do in the next couple of decades. When I look at the second element of that growth engine, I also see how our consumption is changing. So as we are climbing up the GDP ladder, as our disposable incomes are rising, as our per capita unadjusted income is climbing from $2,000 in the last few years, now slowly inching up towards $3,000, it has a exponential impact on how we consume things and what we consume as a country. And this rising, let's say, per capita income will leave households with more disposable income, which will create a demand for a whole suite of products with higher value added elements, which also implies that companies, in fact, which are focusing on the Indian consumption story, are at a precipice of growth, that as the per capita income grows, the need for value added or to a degree enriched product grows. So to a degree, the ability to command some premium and provide a more, let's say, enriched product offering to the end consumer grows. And this basically means that whether we are looking at some of these high growth PLI driven sectors with a government push, or the broader market with some of the more classic sectors like your energy, like your consumption theme, we are looking at the growth now slowly starting to trickle into this with the GDP changing and with the incomes evolving. So I think there are various sectors that young investors can consider. These sectors can be a function of their own job. For example, if one of you is employed in technology, you might want to consider taking exposure to other sectors outside of technology to kind of hedge yourself or diversify. Because assuming that technology is growing, and it's a very safe assumption to have, but it's still an assumption, having exposure outside your core work sector can also diversify your overall financial well-being. Like if the sector does well, you naturally do well being employed in that sector, but taking exposures outside that sector, in particular maybe adding some of these high growth themes to your portfolio, can enable you to get there faster.
Absolutely. And there's that word again, diversification, to help you improve your investment portfolio. But of course, knowledge is power, as they say. So know how the universe is panning out. And in terms of sectoral opportunities, as Deepak mentioned, while you might be exposed to a certain sector where you might work, there are other options you can look at to hedge your bets, so to say. Taking the conversation forward, I want to bring in Harsha for his thoughts, especially on the topic of compounding, because compounding is often described as the magic of finance, but a lot of folks have this question on how compounding actually works and why it's such a powerful tool for young investors. So Harsh, if you can sort of outline the mechanics of compounding for our viewers.
Okay, so compounding in very simple forms, there are two types of interest rates that we get. One is a simple interest rate, wherein by default setting we just get whatever interest rate is due on a principal. And compounding is when we get the interest rate, but that interest rate gets added to the principal. So we earn interest on interest. To give you an example, if we invest 1 lakh rupees at the interest rate of 8%, right? For after 5 years, in simple interest rate, I get 1,40,000, and in compounding, I get 1,46,000. Now, here's the thing, that compounding grows with time. After 40 years, if I just continue to keep my money at of 1 lakh rupees at the interest rate of 8%, in simple interest rate, I get 4,20,000. In compounded interest rate, I get 2 crores 1,72 17 lakhs 2,000. And that's the difference. I feel compounding takes 5 minutes to read. Everyone knows about compounding, but it takes 5 years to understand. And it takes a very mature mind, a very confident mind, a very secure mind to understand that you don't need to hit a 4 and a 6 on every ball. If you even just score those frequent ones and a couple of twos, you've got your scoreboard there. So that is what compounding is. That is why we call it the eighth world wonder. That compounding is the difference between rich and middle class, not in this country, but everywhere. So for me, compounding is the easiest, hardest thing to do.
Absolutely. And of course, to realize the power of compounding, you need to give it time, because this is a test match, so to say, that you're playing when it comes to your investments, and not exactly a T20. But even a test match has some exciting phases. So, Amit, let me bring you in for that to segue from some of the points that Deepak had mentioned earlier, because emerging markets and sectors like technology or renewable energy, they offer exciting opportunities. So, in your view, how can investors tap into these areas through mutual funds, while of course managing the associated risk? Because as we are using the test match analogy, the idea is in certain phases you play on the front foot and in certain phases you play on the back foot. So your thoughts?
So I think, Gautam, if we try to compare the different time zones that we live in, if New York is 10 years behind you, that does not make New York slow. And if Australia is 7 hours ahead than you, then it doesn't make Australia fast. So when we talk of sectors, it's more to do with that I want to earn a return better than Gautam. That has been the mindset of many people to go into a sectoral fund. That it's not relative to the benchmark, but it's relative to my colleague, my peer, or anybody who has been on the drinks table who was talking about a higher return. Mind you, a sector fund is going to give you a higher return, which also means that you are going to have a higher risk. Now, if you try to look at some of the sector fund indices, there are 5 or 6 stocks which make 70-80% of that sector index. So you know that you are going into a concentrated portfolio, and that is going to be a higher risk. For example, defense. 5-6 stocks contribute 70-80% of the index. Now, are you okay to take that kind of a risk by investing in that particular sector? And do you really understand what kind of nuances are played into that sector? So just don't go by the headlines, just don't go by the past returns when it brings the front page of a lot of funds which have delivered 60, 70, 80% in the past 1 year. Although
Absolutely.
consumption as a theme which Deepak said can be one theme which can go on for years because you have a demographic dividend to play. But in that consumption theme also, you need to see where is the fund manager actually investing his money. Is it white goods? Is it something else? Is it auto? Is it because if you see autos, and very interesting observation that two-wheelers, Gautam, in the last 10 years have not grown at all in terms of number of units. The number of
And even
units
the
sold
broader
10 years.
inventories, right? There's so much inventory left for the auto sector.
FADA and CM had released a data point which we have seen in the last week that the manufacturers have shown a higher number of production units, but all that has not translated into sales but is sitting as inventory at the dealers. So
Absolutely. These are nuances, but the question I have for you, Amit, is that it's a fair point. It's a fair point when we look at, say, the sectoral side of things, where you need more information and sometimes it can be seen as a fad. But what about, say, other markets? If the idea of diversification is also that you want a significant India exposure, but you also want exposure to other emerging markets to hedge your bets, what would you say to the young viewers there?
Yeah, there the interesting observation is that invest in companies who have a global market share. For example, if you try to look at a product company like Apple, it has a global market share. There will be many companies across the world which will have a global market share. For example, Samsung in Korea. For example, Meta. For example, Google. So all of these companies are going to be companies who have clients across geographies and who have substantial market share across countries. So try to invest when you're diversifying outside your country. Try to find out companies or funds who are going to invest in companies which are going to have clients across geographies and have commanding market shares for not only in technology, be it energy, be it precious metals, be it anything. So when you invest across your country, A, you are doing diversification for your own currency. B, you are going for GDP growth, which is different than your country. C, you are going to invest in global companies who are commanding market share in different geographies. So when you are investing across India, you know exactly these companies are serving the Indian subcontinent. But when you are investing globally, mind you, you have a currency risk at play. Going for companies which are stable, large, and which have a market share across geographies that can help you diversify your geographical risk. The biggest risk which you can diversify if you are investing outside your home country is a political risk as well. So look at investments which has political risk as well. So people invest like a semiconductor. You had a problem like auto manufacturer components. When the war started between Russia and Ukraine, you had the problem of chips. So all that Poland, Ukraine, they are major suppliers to auto industry. So always analyze these kind of risks also when you are going abroad for investments. And under LRS now you can go and invest across any geography. You have got emerging markets, you have got global markets, you have got developed markets, you have got small caps there, large caps, mid caps. So just study before you invest, and that offers a lot of diversification from your whole country for sure. You need to go abroad if you have actually invested enough in your home country. Mind you, FIs and FPIs are trying to come into India, and we Indians are trying to go abroad for investment. So that's a dichotomy. You have to believe in your own country because the entire world is trying to believe in India now.
Absolutely, the Indian growth story. That's the hottest story right now. Taking it forward as the word risk keeps coming up, Manish, selecting suitable mutual funds that can be overwhelming, especially for young investors. So, how can they make informed decisions that align with their financial goals and risk tolerance?
Right. So to give some context, one has to make peace with the fact that we are an over communicated society and an over communicated market, especially when it comes to business news. I don't think America has 6 business news channels and 6 business newspapers. On top of that, the sheer volume of content that is available thanks to social media, it's very difficult to break out from the noise and get an insight. So, what I would advise young investors is find an advisor. Find an advisor. The mutual fund industry and the capital markets in India are fairly well regulated. There are certifications, there are examinations that people have to clear before they become financial advisors. So find a financial advisor and align their financial incentives with your financial goals. So get a financial advisor when you're getting started. And even if you've started, it's always a good idea to get a financial advisor. I mean, Roger Federer, after winning multiple Wimbledons, got Stephen Edberg to tell him how to get his game better, right? So it's always a good idea to get an advisor. Align their financial incentives with your financial goals. A financial advisor, a well-trained, well-certified financial advisor will always help you break the clutter. They will help you figure out the benefits and the power of compounding because they'll be able to set you a right asset allocation model. A lot of times people miss out on the benefit of compounding is because their asset allocation is not right. They don't have money in fixed income. They don't have an emergency fund. So mutual funds, because they are wonderfully designed, they can be exited anytime. People exit their equity mutual funds and sort of miss out on the long-term benefits of compounding. So get a financial advisor who understands your risk appetite, a financial advisor who understands how markets work, who's well-trained, who's got experience, and more importantly, align their financial incentives with your financial goals. And that's the first thing I would suggest in terms of managing the risks in your portfolio.
Absolutely. And it's great to understand also that there is a lot of support in the system. As we mentioned, there are mutual fund managers who are managing, well, their universe. And now you, of course, have financial advisors who manage your universe of say, the choice of funds you want to make in service of the goals that you are seeking to achieve. So we are truly in interesting times where the power of knowledge, the power of awareness can help you reach your goals. But taking this theme forward of risk and reward, Deepak, let me bring you in to understand the risks and rewards associated with investing in, say, ETFs and index funds. And in your opinion, how young investors can effectively incorporate these into their portfolios?
So, when you're looking at the risk and rewards of investing in index funds, I think that's a fairly generalized umbrella. Now, when you look at index funds as well, over time, there has been a fair degree of nuance that has set in. But let's start with the most classic ones, which are your broad-based vanilla indices like your NSEs, Nifty, or your BSEs, Sensex, which you've all grown up hearing about. Now, when you're looking at these broad-based market cap indices, what you're really talking about when you're looking at investing in these index-linked products is investing in India's growth story driven by, let's say, in particular in these two, the large cap sector. So it is about as broad-based or as unbiased or as agnostic a view as you can take. So classically, some of these indices are your shut and forget options that you can sign up ideally via an SIP kind of a setup from a young age and keep deploying some of your capital towards towards, let's say, the companies which can be simply considered as the growth engine of the country and are sitting atop the food chain in a manner of speaking. And given classical index investing used to be market cap driven, you are largely mitigating the risk of selection as you are kind of participate. You're basically encouraging participation versus selection. And I think that is the core idea of, let's say, passive investing, at least in its most basic or vanilla version. But I think over time, with investor appetite, with, let's say, the younger generation learning more about financial freedom and goals such as FIRE, as you had mentioned before, I think there is an appetite that people have towards, finding a financial advisor, setting their goals, let's say, figuring out or, evolving those goals over time as well. And that's where, to a degree, some of your more nuanced index funds also come into play, where you can take a more, let's say, a more holistic view than a purely market cap driven view. And to kind of take that idea further is in fact where ETFs come into the picture. ETFs give into your hands the control, which to a degree has never been the case when you're looking at mutual funds. And with great power comes great responsibility. So it's one of those classical things that, yes, while the control is given in your hands to a degree with ETFs because you end up trading them on an exchange versus, let's say, going to an advisor explicitly, you can firstly trade them intraday. You have the ability to trade them in an account versus subscribing into them. So they are largely enabling control. And to a degree, this is a concept that got really popular in the US, where ETFs became a dominant kind of a investment vehicle for investors, investor ages across the board, in fact. And that transition didn't necessarily happen because of this ability to trade them intraday, but it more so happened because people naturally prefer price discovery. Even if you don't want to trade them, over the course of the day, having the ability to know what the price is, on a day like election, having the ability to see how your portfolio is really doing over the course of the day, gives people that sense of transparency. When you're investing your life savings, to a degree, transparency is a heightened element that you want. You don't necessarily want to action it. You've learned, let's say, over the years or through your own reading that touching markets when they're volatile comes with its own risks and challenges. But having that ability has naturally led to the adoption of ETFs across the board. And when you're looking at financial advisors in particular, and as people go up the strata of income streams, having an advisor who is able to work with your let's say set goals, who's able to take on some of the risk of entering and exiting these volatile markets with you, and who's able to advise you, that's when really ETFs enable you further in terms of taking more focused bets as you are moving in and out of your investment journey to a degree. So while most ETF investors globally do not churn their portfolios intraday, but the very nature of ETF gives you that control. And and as somebody rightly said, exercising control is the second step to first having it and appreciating it. And I think having it and appreciating it is what is leading to the growing adoption of ETFs naturally on the passive or to a degree index linked products. But when I look at the broader world outside the US today, ETFs or this intraday kind of flexibility is making its way into active or focused mutual funds as well, with active ETFs getting launched to a degree. So I think post-pandemic in particular, we've seen a jump across the board in investor appetite in terms of handholding some of that risk a bit more closely. And ETFs are that path to encouraging a more sensible view of allowing investors to handhold that risk versus trading single securities or single scripts and getting into even more risk, or for that matter, getting involved in the future and option market, where you naturally end up taking a lot more leverage as well. So ETFs are, let's say, somewhere in between that risk metric of, sitting on your investments and looking to, actively engage with them.
Absolutely. And I think somewhere also the role of tech platforms also has to be brought about to credit in terms of the growth in retail participation that we have seen, and in the matters of control, as you mentioned, Deepak, they have given the tools to the Indian investor, the retail investor, and the more younger that they come in, the better for the broader investment journey, so that they understand how this journey progresses. On that note, before we wrap up this discussion, Milan, let me get your thoughts, because as Deepak mentioned, with great power comes great responsibility, and considering technology driven platforms like Upstock, they have made investing more accessible than ever. The question is, how can these platforms simplify the investment process even further for young earners and encourage them to start their investment journey from here on? If you can unmute yourself, Milan.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
So you're right. Players like Upstocks have been game changers for young investors, and there are multiple reasons for that. One being, there is such an intuitive design and navigation that even first-time investors are able to start their investing journey. In addition to that, We have initiatives like Up Learn, wherein and these are educational initiatives wherein almost every month we are doing more than 60 live webinars to help investors and traders learn about the market, whether it is just mutual funds or trading or personal finance. In addition to that, uh, uh, Upstocks also offers low cost investing, so nearly zero fees, in fact no fees, but minimum investment amount is needed to get started, so that removes all the entry barriers for young investors. And with technology, with our internal research and understanding about mutual funds, for investors who are not able to get any financial advice, still they can get started using goal based investing, whether they want to just match nifty returns or are looking for some alternate investment vis-a-vis their savings account in a bank, or could be they want to invest in gold and participate the rally in the bullion markets. And in addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, the beauty of mutual fund investing is you can start small and gradually make it big with the power of compounding, which Harsh was talking about. So I just want to add here that he said that it takes a few minutes to learn about compounding but 5 years to understand it. Probably I took 10 years to understand compounding, but because of influence of social media, there's so much of awareness through the experts that are there on social media, or maybe even fin influencers. Even children are started I have started understanding what are the benefits of long term investing. They are seeing India as a growing potential. Like my daughter, we gave her an option. She wanted to attend a K-pop concert in Singapore. We gave her an option whether she wants to attend that, or vis-a-vis I would give her, or I would invest 200 rupees on her behalf every month. So instead of making a choice, she negotiated with me that would you invest 200 rupees every month for my entire lifetime? So I said yes. So she chose not to go with a K-pop concert, but for long-term investing. I don't know how she figured out that it would have much more larger value in terms of the corpus built over 40-50 years. So
Absolutely. We have to give the next generation more credit for the awareness that they have. And your daughter is a great example of showing that she has long-term thinking when it comes to, what goals she wants to achieve. And of course, the role that investments will play into that.
Gautam,
Yes, Amit.
if you really try to break this, and I just have a quick 2 minute on this, that if you do a 5-year SIP, the market value, suppose the return is 15% CAGR, if you do a 5-year SIP, the total value what you accumulate, 67% of that is still your principal, and the balance is your appreciation. If you just extend that period from 5 year to 10 years, from the market value, 43% is your principal, 57% is your appreciation. And if you extend this to 20 years, the same SIP at a 15% CAGR, the beauty there, and everybody is talking of compounding, the beauty there is that out of the total market value, only 16% now is the principal and 84% is the appreciation. So the same SIP at 15% CAGR in a 5-year period, the principal is 67%. In a 10-year period, the principal is 43%. While in a 20-year period, the principal is just 16% and the appreciation is 84%.
Well, as we have always said, asal se pyara sood, right? That's what we've always heard from others. Asal se pyara sood. And as we have always discussed in this context, time in the market is more important than timing the market. So give your investments the time that they deserve so that they can build your wealth and, more importantly, fuel your goals. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us and providing your insights into building a strong financial foundation for young earners. And to the viewers, I'm sure these strategies that we have discussed us today are invaluable as we navigate the complexities of investing at an early age. Remember, financial independence begins with informed decisions, and our discussions today have provided a roadmap for young earners to start their journey on solid ground. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us at Nivesh Mahakumbh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, we have lots more lined up. Stay tuned for the masterclass that will come up next. Class, so let's dive right into our first topic titled Retirement Ready, Managing Finances in Retirement. Now, this talk is all about making your golden years comfortable and enjoyable. As we approach the latter stages of our lives, managing our finances effectively becomes crucial to ensure a secure and comfortable retirement. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, the global retirement savings gap is projected to reach $400 trillion by 2050, underscoring the urgent need for robust retirement planning. Now, financial planning for retirement involves more than just saving. It encompasses strategic management of resources throughout the accumulation and deaccumulation phases. Now, in the accumulation phase, starting early, of course, is vital to leverage the power of compounding. Transitioning to deaccumulation or distribution phase, the focus shifts to preserving capital while ensuring a steady income stream. Now, as retirement approaches, it is crucial to move from high-risk investments to more conservative options. According to a report by CRISIL, the share of senior citizens in mutual fund investments has increased by 12% over the past 5 years, reflecting a growing trend towards secure investment options. Now, ensuring liquidity to handle unforeseen expenses, optimizing risk to maintain stability, and maximizing portfolio performance to sustain one's lifetime, those are all the key elements of this phase. And of course, to give insights from his extensive knowledge and experience, we are joined by Mr. K.S. Rao as our guest for today's master. Now, Education and Distribution Development at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC Limited, Mr. Rao brings over 34 years of rich experience in the financial industry. Since joining the organization in March 2008, he has been instrumental in shaping the strategies for investor education and expanding the distribution network, making him a key figure in asset management. Now, Mr. Rao's distinguished career includes significant tenures with the Indian Railways and UTI Asset Management Company Limited. His vast experience and leadership in the financial sector make him an invaluable resource for today's session, particularly on managing finances in retirement, as he guides us through the intricacies of building and sustaining a secure financial future. Mr. Rao, as always, a pleasure to have you on Nivesh Mahakumbh, and we are looking forward to that vast repertoire of experience that you bring to the table to explain to our viewers how to make sure that they are retirement ready. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gautam, for such a wonderful intro. And I'm not very sure whether I'm entitled for that part, but indeed it's always an honor to be here. And Nivesh Mahakumbh, it's core to my heart, and it is one of our key initiatives. I sincerely thank you for taking this to a large audience. And I'm also thankful for HT Media as a partners for us, who did immense work for all of us, and we are highly grateful. And I know, as I was listening to Mr. Bala, and this is a very crucial year for Aditya Birla Sun Life Asset Management. I mean, as he was mentioning, it is 3 decades of he with asset management and 3 decades of the asset management company itself. And at Aditya Birla, we have a few things to say. I mean, every business of us is underlying theme is enriching the lives. And here, for us, when it comes to asset management, 30 years, it is one, inspire the trust, create the wealth, and enrich the lives. And today we are talking about retirement and retirement planning. Probably this is going to be an innings in somebody's life. I call it as a 30-30 innings. I mean, an average. We work for 30 years and we tend to live another 30 years, plus or minus here and there. And as you rightly put it, on the accumulation stage to decumulation or deaccumulation stage, you have 30 years to accumulate and 30 years to spend. And 30 years of cash flows converting into 30 years of capital flows. And how you need to look at those 30 years, how that 30 years can be very different. And you put it very rightly when it is a golden years, and you also put it there is a gap. And for me, this is a GAP is a golden age plan, and that cannot be a gap of that. And we should have a gap how we can fill, how structurally you can fill, and what is that you need to do at each of these stages. And probably I look at not as a 1-2 stage, probably I look at the 3 stages. It's also a transition space, that's the most crucial part for many of us when it is planned for the retirement.
Absolutely. In fact, I want you to start this conversation by focusing on the accumulation phase, and then we look at the deaccumulation phase. So if we can look at the key benefits of starting retirement savings early, and how does compounding work over the long term, because a lot of the folks have this doubt as to how compounding actually works. And a lot of the young folks who are starting out, they might not be thinking about retirement savings right now. So what would you like to say to them on the benefits of starting retirement savings early?
Okay. Indeed, it's a stage to start. It's a stage to set, and probably even before you start your accumulation stage work, I put it put every one of us in that space. And there are simple how you can simplify entire retirement planning, and it's most, and this is one plan we most of us tend to postpone because it's not happening today. It is happening at much more later date, and you are not very sure how that later date is. And I look at 5 questions to ask for ourselves. And before even I get to the accumulation, before I start my retirement planning, the question number 1 is what kind of lifestyle I intend to live. And and the question number 2, how long I will have my retirement life will be. Is it 30 years? Is it 40 years? It means it's effectively life expectancy. I know you are in the retirements. And how many years you have for the planning today for accumulation? What is the number? Because each of us started at different stage of life. Somebody who is starting at 25, who will have a power of compounding far better. Somebody is starting at 50, the power of compounding could be very different. And this is the stage how you can look at. And for retirement, I also look at another question. The wants and needs for the retirement planning, it may be a little different from the wants and needs for a broad financial planning. I put it in an acronym base. I mean, this is wants for the retirement for me is WA and TS, right? It is what aspects are needed to be looked into. Means your retirement broadly, and your needs are something in the retirement planning is your needs will come very differently. Probably I look at in the retirement today is new emergencies and the existing difficulties to be solved. That could be your need. And what are your expectations? These 5 questions I need to look at. And when you asked the question earlier, I mean, what are the accumulation stage 1 you need to do starting early, and how you can look at the power of compounding to work. Probably the accumulation stage, I again put it as a simple 5-step plan. The plan for number 1 is how you can start early. And why you need to start early, even with the small money. You start a career. I mean, we do this program called My First Paycheck. And at the end of the session for these final grads, we come to a conclusion. It's better to, you score from the first over and the first ball onwards, to make your win better, start early. And that gives a formation, the savings habit you get there. And then what you look at is when you start early, what you're looking at is what is your inning score you look at, right? And this is what is the corpus you're looking at, how much how much corpus you need to get there. And while you're doing what kind of a diversification, when then you have got a free hit, when you got a sixer, when you got a 4, and when you got sometimes ones, means your SIPs, your accumulations, and you keep adding to it as and when it's stepping up yourself. And how much you save, probably is it a minimum 10%, probably per over run rate, if I can put it, I can look at 10%. If I can look at that way, I can look at. And the starting early will also make you to ability to understand your risk better. And tomorrow morning markets corrects, you doesn't need to worry, and you are accumulating, and you need to just wait, and that can give a reasonable corpus is the first one. And the second question when you said is the compounding, and compounding is a crucial part which can works for it, whether you are even putting in a recurring deposit or the mutual fund or in the equity market, irrespective that rate of return, whatever it's the time of you are invested will make a lot of difference for you. Probably, I look at if I'm putting 10,000 rupees for a period of, say, if I'm starting at the age of 25, means roughly I'll put for 35 years. The 10,000 rupees, even at 10%, it can become a 6 crores for me. And little delay of 5 years, it will become a 3 crores corpus. Means, after 5 years can make that kind of a large difference. That is the power of compounding. In fact, other day I was doing a program of my first paycheck when I was giving an example on the power of compounding, and none other than Mr. Warren Buffett. I said when he started at 11, where he started it, after 55 years, his wealth today, what it is, I mean, half of the wealth is created in the last 5 years. Then this girl came back. Sir, if he lives for another 10 years, I can see double the money for him. I said, that's the way power of compounding works. And somebody said, had he started instead of 11, had it at 6, probably where he could have been. I mean, this is where the power of compounding works. And incidentally, power of compounding works at both stages of life. When you are investing and when you are not investing, the price you are paying for it.
Absolutely. You're making your money work for you. And your cricketing analogy is especially relevant because over the long term, investment is like playing a test match versus a T20 match. And in that context, as you mentioned, even if you start slow, scoring just about 2 or 3 runs in an over, you can build the base for a great score as you go along. Now, in that context, we also have to understand that a batter has to have a repertoire of shots, whether they have to face spin or fast bowling. So taking that point forward, Mr. Ra, how should one diversify their investment portfolio during the accumulation phase to balance risk and reward effectively?
Yeah, this is a fabulous way to look at, how I can balance my risk and reward. And diversification, probably, if somebody is putting in the mutual funds, there is an auto diversification which has happened already. And while diversifying, one need to understand the risk profile and what kind of, and today you have a risk profiling tools which are available, and how you can look at that risk profile, and you have a right asset allocation. I mean, probably, it's a multi-assets today, and each of the asset class can work very well, and timing you are in, and what kind of asset allocation you are getting into it. And the third one I look at is diversifying within the asset class. Probably, when you are coming to the mutual funds, you have a large cap, you have a mid cap, you have a small cap. Within the asset class, how you can do this is like, in the during the power overs you are scoring more, and during the lean overs you are waiting for it, as you rightly put it. When it has spin, how you can place, and how you can face the whole situation. And the diversification also requires the regular rebalancing, because things in the last 3 years are very different, which is going to be the next 3 years. And rebalance can make your assets working for you, rather than you don't need to stress. And the last one I look at is keep always, when you are doing the asset allocation, stay informed and get adapted to the situation, because there could be a period of time that has too much of returns. There is a period of time you get a zero, and there is a low return, there is a no return, there is a high return. How you can rebalance it, and that's the way I look at it.
And another important point here is that when we look at such a long-term horizon, the issue would be some of the mistakes which come on. Just like in cricket, right? Your batsman is set, he's playing, but sometimes a rash shot comes about. So the question I have for you is, what are the common mistakes people make when setting retirement goals, and how can they avoid them?
Yeah, and this is a fabulous question. It is a question to be pondered over many a times. It's the first thing I look at. The biggest mistake for many of us is we think retirement is not in the near future. It's a very long one, and I don't need to. That's not a very emergency one. It's not very essential to plan. Not planning for the retirement is the first mistake we do it. And when to plan, it's we always tend to postpone. Rather than postponing, addressing as early as possible is the most important part of it. And one of the studies when we did, we have seen people look for a retirement plan when they got their first child predominantly. And probably, you can do this much more better. And the second part is different professions calls for a different kind of plan. For example, I've seen doctors. We do this program called Dr. Nivesh, and most of the doctors, they start their career late. I mean, starting too late could be also one mistake. And third one is underestimating your expenses, and these expenses in terms of inflation, and this in terms of it, and underestimating and not looking at on the taxation side, not looking at the health cost. And the fourth one I look at is the longevity of life, and estimating, today average age. I think this book, which is written by Linda Granton, how the work life is shrinking today, and people tend to live even 100 years of work life. You need not 100 years of life, and that's a where you need to plan. There's a fantastic book which she has written. And the fifth mistake I look at is somebody who planned, but there is a corpus which is created. And I have seen this in the recent past. Suddenly you have seen a lot of wealth which has come in your retirement kitty, and you are dipping into that corpus to attend to pay for your car or pay for your house. You are dipping into the corpus thinking that retirement, and thinking that these returns are going to be a permanent one, and that could be the another, it's a and the last could be during the other phase is withdrawing little more than what is needed.
All right. I'll take one or two points that you mentioned here as I wrap up the accumulation phase side of this conversation. And the question that I have for you is, how can individuals ensure that retirement savings keep pace with inflation and rising healthcare costs? Because those are going to be the two big factors in terms of protecting capital and making sure that you have an adequate corpus which builds on its own due to the power of compounding. So your thoughts on what can individuals do to make sure that their retirement savings are in a sense inflation proof and can tackle rising healthcare costs?
Yeah, I think it's very crucial to look at the rising health cost and inflation proof, and all that. What you need to do is invest wisely, and invest in that asset class which can give you the returns which is more than the inflation. And probably I call predominantly at equity and the asset which is a growth oriented, and look at equity as an asset class over a period it has proved. And I look at, today we just spoke about 30 years, and I look at last 30 years in India, the stage of reforms which were set in 1991, and maybe 33 years, and this has happened. Today's growth, what we have seen, is happened by default or sometimes a little design. And when we are talking about next 30 years for us, which we call this is an Amrit Kal, which we call this is a Viksit Bharat, and which is called a Atmanirbhar Bharat. When you are looking at this is going to be a by design, how you can design your portfolio in such a way when India is growing at a growth phase, and you can put a lot of your assets in India and a growth part, and you participate in that. And when it comes to health cost, how you can look, ensuring your health and insuring your health. These two can make you minimize, you keep better, and you don't need to worry. And equity should be a major asset class. And look at rebalancing as often as possible. Probably, sometimes at a younger stage of life, you can overboard on the asset class which can do better.
Absolutely. And when I look at the markets, the time it took for the Sensex to hit its first 10,000 mark versus every subsequent 10,000 point jump that it has seen, the timelines have shrunk. So it is indeed an exciting growth phase that India has been witnessing that investors need to tap into. All right, let's shift from the accumulation phase to the deaccumulation phase and assume that you invested wisely during the accumulation phase. Now the question is, the next 30 begins, as you say. So, Mr. Rao, what strategies should be employed to transition from high-risk investments to more conservative options as, say, retirement approaches for an individual?
Thanks, Gautam. I think, again, it's a very crucial stage of life. And deaccumulation can also make a lot of difference, because all that you need to rearrange yourself, how much you accumulated. And before that, there is I feel it's a transition stage. Transition stage is like this: when you play 20 overs match, at 15th over or 16th over, you will get to know where you are ending up your 20th over. And you need to speed up something, you need to hit hard, and you need to play, no defense. Now you need to go all out, and depending on the situation, or your wickets are last, then you need to preserve those 3 wickets. And that wicket here, I look at these 3 wickets could be your liquidity, your growth, and your returns. And you need to preserve that liquidity, preserve that safety, and preserve that return. And this transition phase is a crucial for us in the retirement. Between accumulation and deaccumulation, the transition phase, look at 5 things which whether you have done rightly or no. One, you ensure before even looking at the corpus, are you debt free, and have you saved enough? And third is, do a test run. If you are going to live for 30 years, how this corpus is going to work for you, and provide for your health expenses, and ensure there is an emergency fund. If you can take these in a transition phase, then you can always look at the transition phase, the 5 steps formula I always talk about. You can have a gradual shift from, you have a growth phase to the phase you need to protect. You need to high risk to the low risk stage of your life, and get into that gradual shift. Move it to the either target date funds, or I call debt structuring. It is a bond laddering, how I can look at, and ensure that emergency fund is always crucial in every phase of life. The moment you have an emergency fund, you don't need to worry about other things, because it takes off, because markets may turn whichever the way, and you tend to become emotional, take a decisions. And I believe in the retirement planning, three things will happen. You have your health, you have your wealth, and you have your emotions. How you need to play the triangular one, and ensure the deaccumulation stage. How you this three bucket formula I look at. You don't need entire corpus today. If I'm retiring at 60, if I'm living for 90, what I need to do is, first bucket is next 5 years what I need, because little cash, and I need more liquidity. It's a lesser return is fine. The pocket of money which for the next 5 years cash flow, and next one would be the next bucket. It could be the next 10 years, maybe 60 to 70 kind of it. The second bucket, where it can have an income, where it can have a duration portfolio, and it could be a balanced one. And the last 10 years, another 10 years, which is a little longer bucket, you can play as if you are in accumulation stage, because that money you never need it. That can work for you to create little more wealth. That money can be tomorrow morning you're passing on to the next generation. And the last but not least is, have your financial coach. That can help a lot, because you individually, you tend to do mistakes, and somebody behind you can help you for it. And that's what I look at as a transition phase.
Absolutely. And looking at the three buckets that you mentioned, Mr. Rao, the question also is, how can retirees ensure that they have sufficient liquidity to handle unforeseen expenses during retirement? Because you spoke about emergency funds during that phase. If you can expand on some of those points.
I think, then in the second phase of life, it's like a second innings. I mean, how you need to preserve your wicket and keep playing is the most important. If there are 3 wickets, I can look at the first wicket is the most safety wicket part of it. Ensure that is never falling into it. And here the liquidity is as a second wicket, and the third is the return wicket. Your 3 wickets you look at. And emergency fund, how much you are keeping? Probably you can give a cushion little more. Your emergency fund can be little higher, because you have a psychological comfort. It's more than the return. You have a psychological comfort, and emergencies may come anyway, which way you do not know. You are just making, you can't predict, but you are preparing for it. Your emergency fund, which I call it as a contingency fund. And then provide for your annuities. Probably you can go for the partial annuities, so that you can plan your cash flows in a very different way. And the third I look at is, from some of your investments, in case of emergency or falling, just a preparation, can you look at some of the line of the credit which is available to you? And then you should have a flexible withdrawal plan. When you are planning for this retirement, we call safe withdrawal plan. Probably, you can have the flexible withdrawal plan. Some pockets of time, I may need to withdraw a little more, then I can keep it. And the last but not the least is, can you work for the multiple sources of income flow that period of time? It's when you are investing in multi assets, your liquid income flow can be very different. Probably, some you may be getting for your pension, or some maybe you're getting from annuities, some you may be getting from your assets. How you are planning for that, that's the most important part.
All right. Now, if you don the mantle of a coach advising players, what would you say are the best practices for optimizing risk while maintaining stability in a retirement portfolio?
Yes, I think the optimizing risk is the most important part. And I call risk is something like RISK, right? It is a richly invested in skills of knowledge, and skills and knowledge you can look at. And but that's the first part, looking at. I mean, again, if I can take cricket analogy, what you do is you see how you safeguard yourself to stay in the pitch, and for that, diversifying your hit which side you are looking at. Diversification plays a very, very vital role for optimizing risk. And asset allocation plays another one. Each of the asset class may vary differently, and asset allocation can give you differently. And within the asset allocation, can I look at assets which can give an income, multiple assets which can give me a growth, that can be a multiple assets. And third one I look at is how I can rebalancing it. What is my run rate, where I'm scoring, how long I'm going to live, am I afford to this lifestyle, how I can rebalance that. Then either I need to minimize my lifestyle or maximize my rate, and what is that I can do it. And the last probably the last two things I can talk about is in every aspect I would like to emphasize emergency fund, and emergency fund. And have a coach, have a financial advisor. The professional advice can make a lot of difference even at this phase of life, because in the reviewing you can always look at. And don't forget to involve in the conversations, bringing in your spouse, because it's not a one man's retirement, it's a family which is impacts, and have that family conversations around.
All right. So from playing defense, let's talk about playing on the front foot. You've played smartly and sensibly for a majority of the innings. Now the question is, what do you do towards the end of the innings? So your thoughts, Mr. Rao, on how retirees can maximize their portfolio performance to sustain their lifestyle throughout retirement?
Yes, fabulous. I think, Gautam, again, this I go back to the earlier one when I said the 3-bucket formula. My third bucket is predominantly looking at growth. Third bucket, I'm capturing the growth. Second bucket, I'm doing the balancing. First bucket, I'm looking at cash flows available. You want to maximize, probably, what you can do is my current consumption, keeping apart previous other consumptions, every rupee, how it can maximize, what returns I can look at. Today, coming back on the mutual fund space, I look at if the first bucket is taking care of the debt, second bucket taking care of the balanced funds, third bucket can taking care of the equity funds. That can give the maximizing return. And the second one, not only the returns is the one, the outcome of my investment. Return is the one which I can reduce my tax outflow, how I can look at my tax efficiency. And while withdrawing, I can put the tax efficiency in place. For example, this budget has given 1.25 lakhs as I can withdraw my capital gains with a tax free. How I can bucket those small things and how I can make most tax efficient. Paying tax is good for the country, saving tax is good for you. How you can do that in a very balanced way. And the use that in the initial period in the first bucket or second bucket, use that safety of the withdrawal plan as less as possible. We talk it's a 4%, right? If you can plan that way, it's the most idealistic way. Sometimes it is difficult, but you stick to that withdrawal plan. If you can formulate withdrawal plan, have a 3-bucket strategy and budgeting your expenses, and then you are in the game and you can maximize the returns.
All right. You spoke about tax efficiency. I want you to expand on that and take us through the most effective strategies for withdrawing from retirement accounts to minimize tax implications. What would you like to state?
Yeah, fortunately, you have a multiple investment options. Probably, up to 30 lakh rupees, you can put the money into the most tax efficient way, whether it is a postal savings, whether it's a senior citizens Vayovandana Yojana, and then you come back to the systematic withdrawal plan of the mutual funds. Within the systematic withdrawal plan, put it in an asset class which can give you the most tax efficient way. Probably, it's a 12.5% long-term capital gains in the current, but this is changing very faster. Put it in a tax efficient ways, availing all the tax benefits available. Integrate your cash flow and tax planning together, and that's the best way to look at.
All right. And before we wrap up our masterclass, your thoughts on how retirees should plan for long-term care and manage the associated costs.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the last one is the phase. When I said it's a golden age plan, how you can make that gold shines till the end of your life. Sheen of the gold, you can keep it. And for me, that gold GOLD is an acronym. I look at long-term care is that GOLD. how you can gainfully engaged, gainfully invested. Either it's a three bucket strategy, yourself investing yourself and your money to be invested. And O, that is the optimal investing in every asset class, how you can look at. L is your lifestyle, how you can like the way you are rebalancing the portfolio, probably you need to relook at your lifestyle. D is the discipline, whether it is an investing, whether you are disinvesting, you need to have that gold part of it. And when you said long-term care, again, care, I put it is in very in acronym way, and that is the best care you can take is when you have a contingency fund, right? C. And A is your right asset allocation. C is your regular income plan and regular regular investment plan when you are doing that time. Regular income plan you are looking at R, and E is coming as a always you can look at how that any emergency, are you ready to prepare for it? And apart from the money, financial wealth is one part for the long-term care. You have a multiple wealths you need to take care. Your relations, investing in money, investing in relations, and your social wealth, your psychological wealth, your spiritual wealth can bring that the gold part of it, and ensure you have written your will. And that is another one which can makes you free. When you are passing on the legacy, that will is the most important part. This WILL, that is normally I call it as a wish I live longer, but I can't write. I need to write my will, and ensure that you are professionally professional advice, and you have a your whole journey. When I start my money for the accumulation, it is I focus more on increasing my purse. When I come, it is I look at is I pursue. I pursue that my money can last. And here I look at it as a pulse, and at the last leg, which is your purpose, which is your legacy, which is your sustainability, and which is your economic stability. If you can bring that, can bring the holistic wealth.
Well, you've brought the pulse in the conversation, and those are indeed golden words to take care of your golden years. Mr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us here on Nivesh Mahakumbh and sharing with us your valuable insights on managing finances in retirement. Your expertise indeed has provided practical strategies to ensure a secure and comfortable future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Gautam. Indeed, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, as we continue our journey towards financial empowerment, we now turn our attention to building and sustaining wealth through market cycles. Let's dive into Masterclass 2, where we will explore strategies for staying financially fit in an ever-changing market landscape. Financial landscape, sustaining wealth requires a thorough understanding of market dynamics and the ability to adapt to changes. The journey to financial fitness is akin to maintaining physical health. It demands consistent effort, strategic planning, and a balanced approach. In this masterclass, aptly titled Financial Fitness, Building and Sustaining Wealth Through Market Cycles and Factor-Based Funds, we will delve into strategies for creating a resilient investment portfolio that can withstand market fluctuations and economic downturns. Attendees will learn how to rebalance their portfolios periodically to maintain an optimal risk-reward ratio and learn how to capitalize on market opportunities during different economic phases. We're delighted to welcome Harish Krishnan, co-CIO and Head of Equity at Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC Limited, as our guest for the second masterclass. With nearly 20 years of experience in the asset management industry, both domestically and internationally, Harish brings a wealth of knowledge to our session. Now, before joining ABSL AMC, he served as Senior Fund Manager Equity at Kotak Mutual Fund for over a decade and managed offshore funds at Kotak Mahindra UK Limited in Singapore and Dubai. In this masterclass, Harish will guide investors through the complexities of financial planning and wealth management, and he'll also highlight the significance of financial discipline, focusing on regular investment practices, emergency fund management, and long-term financial planning. So let's get ready to learn how to build sustainable financial future by staying financially fit, similar to our nation's resilience and adaptability to challenges. Harish, great to have you at Nivesh Mahakumbh.
Delighted to be here and glad to partner with you as we take you through this journey of financial fitness and wealth creation.
Indeed, a journey of financial fitness. Well, there's a lot of hard work to make sure that we achieve our goals. So let's begin our conversation by first understanding, Harish, that the key components of a resilient investment portfolio, which can withstand market fluctuations and economic downturns, there are a lot of moving parts at play. So give us the blueprint.
Sure. In any household, you've got basically some income streams. It could be salaries, it could be business income. That is your flow. That essentially sits into the wealth basis what the savings that you do of that income stream, and that goes onto the balance sheet. Essentially, the business that we are in is into nurturing and bringing this balance sheet to grow, to financially secure ourselves, and to meet our various obligations and goals and aspirations that we are seeking out to. So if we go with that kind of a broad landscape, broadly savings in India, the balance sheet side or the wealth side, is broadly broken down into two broad aspects. You've got the physical savings, which in India is primarily real estate and gold. And then you've got financial savings, which is either bank deposits, it could be instruments which are equity linked. There are EPFO obligations and their wealth streams that can come through post office savings, etc. So that's really the broad sense of physical and financial savings. Now, when we look at in aggregate terms for India as a whole, by and large, our savings are very highly skewed towards physical savings. We are talking in excess of close to about 70% of financial saving of the total savings of aggregate India residing into physical savings, primarily real estate, which is a reasonably large amount. And then you also have gold, which is a disproportionately high incidence that we see in India compared to the rest of the world, right? So that is the ballpark of 70-30. Now, the role of each of these assets that we have on our wealth or on our balance sheet, there are multiple purposes. Some of them are meant for emergency purposes, what we want to have for immediate use or on a rainy day. Some are for near-term goals, say over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years. And some of them, and many of them, are for our longer-term goals, be it that of children's education, be that of retirement solutions, etc. And therefore, there needs to be a proper mapping of each of these goals and aspirations that each of us have, and how it ties in with each of these product segments. So that's maybe I'll kind of stop here, but this is the big picture in terms of how you want to basically look at how Indians have traditionally been looking at building their wealth. It is changing, and there has been a dramatic shift that we have seen in the last 15-20 years, and we can discuss about that and how therefore it helps us navigate through the multiple business cycles that all of us encounter.
Indeed, that's been a recap of how things have been so far when it comes to the investment landscape, the physical side of it and the financial side of it, as outlined by Harish. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? And Harish, when we look at any exercise, you keep adding more exercises so that you can build yourself up strong. You don't stick to traditional exercises. So in that context, I want to understand from you, how can investors balance traditional investments like equities and bonds with more modern assets such as, say, ETFs or REITs or sector specific funds? Give us the outline here.
Sure. So broadly, there is a ratio called the wealth to income. For aggregate households put together. Now, for most advanced economies, that number on an aggregate or on an average basis, however you look at it, typically oscillates between 6 to 7 times, which is whatever is your income in that particular year, your wealth typically is between 6 to 7 times, right? Now, it has not always been at 6 to 7 times. It used to be, say, 50 years back, 60 years back, it used to be close to about 3 or 4 times. So there is a journey of moving and building your fitness from 3 to 4 times globally to currently about 6 to 7 times. Now, if you look at how that has progressed, it is on two counts, right? One is to have dedicated saving vehicles that move more and more of your income into various products. So, which is in some sense as to what we want to focus on our income streams and how we are allocating the denominator part, if I may, right? The second and the more important thing is it's just not enough to have a very high savings rate and say that that is going to get me more fit. What is equally important is to move it into assets and move it into products where that velocity can move up quite meaningfully. So let's talk about numbers now here. Okay, uh, typically, uh, the the role of any asset in a wealth creation exercise is to beat inflation because inflation erodes the purchasing power over periods of time. And when we did this exercise, there was roughly about a same percentage of time over a rolling 5 year or a rolling 10 year that assets like equity, real estate, even gold for that matter, beat inflation. Okay, so it's not very different, between these different asset classes, and yet we have a disproportionate focus on physical assets or in terms of fixed deposits, wherein we believe that there is a greater comfort and a greater safety aspect that we'll get through. But if our primary goal is to beat inflation, then they are not doing as good a job compared to the asset classes that you named, be it ETFs, be it other financial assets, including mutual funds. It could be sectoral mutual funds. It could be asset classes like REITs and InvITs, which are just very nascent in India, but which are slowly emerging to be various asset classes. The third and possibly the most telling observation that I want to kind of stop here with is that if you look at our current total allocation to cash, okay, this is basically cash which is in all our wallets, in certain cases somebody's mattresses, etc. But let's not get there. If I look at the total cash which is outside of the banking system, okay, that is equal to about 75% of the total money that Indians have put into equity markets, either through mutual funds or on direct equities. And this I'm saying over the course of the last 30, 40, 50 years, cumulatively, Indian households have put close to about 50 lakh crores there. The cash which is there on the outside of the banking system currently is close to about 35 to 40 lakh crores. So as we all know, cash earns nothing. It has got almost 100% chance of eroding, of not beating inflation. And yet we have such a disproportionate allocation to an asset class like cash. So the point is to get more fit. I think it is important to get your money to also work as much as you are working to earn that money. It is more important to let the money work for you as well. And that can happen as you move into asset classes which are more financial in nature. Of course, one has to be prudent, and we'll get to that when we discuss that in times as to how you want to allocate between these various asset classes. But the bigger picture is we need to see a greater shift moving from physical assets to financial assets. And even within financial assets, we need to kind of introspect. Do we need such a disproportionate allocation to, say, FDs or to products like cash? Or should we actually move into assets which can build wealth over a long period of time through other financial assets? So these are the two big questions that will help us improve our financial fitness.
Indeed. And as that move to financial investments happen, the need to understand risk more deeply also comes into play, because at the end of the day, we all want to build a strong portfolio that weathers the vagaries of markets, whether they go up and down. And we are seeing a market shift from physical to financial savings, but still the need to understand risk more deeply is required. So in that context, Harish, why is periodic portfolio rebalancing important, and what strategies should investors use to maintain an optimal risk reward ratio? If you can take us through that.
So I think, while most of us focus on risk from the prism that, can we lose a certain amount of money due to the volatility and the degrees of the markets, I think the bigger risk is the opportunity cost of not investing in markets. I mean, so when we talk about risk reward, I think we also tend to kind of overlook that aspect, that what is not invested possibly has got a far greater chance of not able to meet our financial obligations. So that is one key aspect that we have to consider. Now, the second key aspect is having invested into markets or into instruments which move up and down. It is important not to put all our eggs in one basket. I think it's very clear that we need to have a diversified asset allocation approach. Uh, More importantly, it is like having a thali, as a meal. You don't want to be only in carbohydrates. You don't want to be only in proteins. You don't want to have only sweet, but you need to have a balanced approach, which is basically that you need to have a reasonable amount of allocation to products like equities, and even within equities, you need to have, say, your diversified funds, which are all-weather funds, which are not focused on a particular theme or which are not focused on a particular sector, but go across. So that should be your bulk of your allocation. And then you need to top it up basis your risk profile and also understanding where the market and the business cycle of various sectors is moving on. And that is where you've got thematic funds, sectoral funds, etc., which are like, the side dishes that can accompany the main meal, right? The third aspect is, do we just let it run through the course of its up and down, or do we need to balance it with something which is not what we call in financial terms correlated with the main asset class? So you want to buy into asset classes which don't move along the same way that the rest of the asset classes move. So for example, gold, for example, is a reasonable counter-cyclical or a less correlated asset class compared to, say, equities. A certain aspect of debt is reasonably less correlated to that of equities. And therefore, you want to have an allocation not to maximize your wealth at any point of time, but more to ensure that it's a very balanced kind of an approach. The fourth thing, as you rightly said, is to timely rebalance, right? Now, there is no preset frequency that you have to rebalance every 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. It can vary from person to person, and more importantly, on the tolerance of the volatility that they can afford to tolerate or withstand, right? But generally, I would think that it's a good practice always to have an annual review of the portfolio to see whether the tolerance bands have kind of got breached, in which case it's always better to kind of get it back into control. It's like saying doing an annual checkup, right? It is not to say that one should get obsessed with doing a checkup every 3 months, 6 months, but to do a broad checkup so that we get to know which are the areas that we are deficient in, which are the areas that we want to further focus on, and how close are we to our end goals of fitness of our financial well-being. And therefore, I think annual checkup is a reasonably good point. The second, and sometimes a rarer possibility, is where markets have moved up significantly or have fallen down significantly. So, when you see that, for example, markets have fallen 25, 30, 40%. And because of that, it may not necessarily coincide with your annual kind of a point in time where you're doing the portfolio review. But if you think that there is an overwhelming either exuberance or a massive panic, that is also a time where it makes sense to take a relook as to where you are currently positioned. and to take it. The last thing is, I think in all our journeys, we need to have a peaceful night's sleep. And that needs to be a very good barometer to see, are we overexposed to one category or not? So if we are forever going to check what Dow Jones is up to in the night, possibly we are overexposed to the equity asset class, and vice versa. So I think there is no one size fits all, but it is more a function of your own calling in terms of the risk tolerance that you can potentially take. But yeah, these would be what I would suggest, which can help a long way in terms of maintaining financial fitness.
Well, let your money work for you, as they say. And as you mentioned, a balanced diet, just like a balanced portfolio, so that you can have a healthier performance. And taking forward the point that you mentioned, because we'll see big shifts in market on like blips. One day the markets go soar like there's no tomorrow, and next day there's a significant dip. But I want you to talk about the economic phases and the market opportunities that come about when you look at the broader picture, and understanding how investors can identify market opportunities during, say, different economic phases and adjust their portfolios accordingly. What would you suggest to the viewers?
So, see, by and large, I think we are in a phase, and speaking about India more specifically, wherein we are in this phase where we are blessed to have on the right side of demographics globally. We are a young country, a lot more productive workforce compared to whom we need to take care of, which is our dependency. Uh, the second thing is, if you look at compared to most other global economies, we are in a phase wherein our debt is reasonably under control as a economy as a whole. Most other economies are on steroids or are on ventilator support as far as debt is concerned, which means that the amount of debt that needs to keep being pumped into the economy has to keep going up to get even some economic output out. We are clearly not in that case. Now, can we be like this forever? Possibly not. We think that there is a phase of the next 10, 15, 20 years, which is the phase wherein we have a reasonably young population. The median age of population is still okay. By when, we need to get into a phase of, higher economic output, higher GDP per capita, etc., to become on the road to be, say, a more prosperous country than what we are today. So therefore, I think one needs to have the bigger picture always in mind, which is to take a call over the course of the next 10, 20 years. And I genuinely do think that we are in a very good zone as far as that is concerned. Now, within these 10, 20 years, it's not going to be a straight line, of course. There are going to be ups and downs, there are going to be fluctuations, right? Now, the way to look at where we are is on broadly, say, three broad aspects, right? The first aspect is economic activity by corporates in totality. Now, how do we gauge that? We look at, say, various metrics like, say, capacity utilization. Are corporates running at very high elevated capacity utilizations, or are they running at low capacity utilizations? Ideally, you want to be balanced. You don't want to be in very high zone, which means that you're constantly, afraid whether that growth can be supported, or you don't want to be at very, very low, because then you have an issue with demand, right? So that is one way of checking at it. The second thing is whether the growth aspirations that various companies have and the economy has, can that be funded internally, or are they resorting to external borrowing, right? Now, certain amount of borrowing is always welcome in the sense that it helps to buy growth of the future today by borrowing. But if you are going to forever rely on external sources of funding, at some point that tap is going to stop, right? And that further accentuates the fall whenever somebody decides that, this is not a very healthy way of operating, right? So that's the second level, which is to look at, say, bank credit growth or overall credit growth. I mean, banking, non-banking, shadow credit, etc. There are various metrics in which you can look at it, and you get a sense whether, are we going at 10, 15%, or are we growing at a blistering pace of, say, 30, 40% over, say, a 3-year rolling basis. So that's the second level, right? The third level to check off is whether the operating profitability of corporates which are they at a very elevated level or are they at a normalized level? Okay, you don't want too much of profits also to come through. In which case, you are worried that maybe there could be some regulatory action, etc. One needs to always prioritize longer term growth rather than near term maximization, in my view. Right. The fourth aspect is whether all of these things, these are on the real ground economic activity. How much of this is being already bought in by or perceived by the market participants? And for that, you can look at valuation numbers, right? So, in essence, you need to get a sense of where we are in the cycle. Are we in the early stages of the cycle? Are we in the mid stage of the cycle? Or are we in the late stage of the cycle? That is one way, one metric to look at. The second metric to look at is how are corporates? Are they exuberant? Are they still panic stricken? Or are they very balanced? Which gear are they operating on? Are they in reverse gear? Are they in first gear, second gear, third gear, or fourth gear? And the third is whether investors are perceiving it to be more like a fourth gear, even though the reality is like a first gear or a second gear. In which case, there's a disconnect between what the investor is perceiving it, whereas the reality is not so much, right? So if I were to look at all of these and where we think today we are, okay, just to kind of close that loop, we think that, from a real on the ground kind of a thing, we would say capacity utilizations are more like the second gear kind of a phase. We are in a very balanced kind of a thing. We are not in extremely exuberant or in extremely poor demand kind of an environment. So that is where we are. As far as corporate investments are concerned, I would say we are still in the first gear kind of a zone, right? We went from a phase from 2015 to 2019 where most corporates were very worried of being an NPA and therefore they would not invest in. From there, we are starting to move into that investment phase, right? Now, coming to the perception of valuation, of course, that is on the higher level, right? So the point is you need to be very worried when all of them are at the highest level, in which case you know that, you are giving peak multiples for peak earnings, right? But currently it appears that, yes, there is an exuberance in terms of valuation, but the other two parameters are still very, very okay. In which case you are likely to see more time correction over a period of time rather than a massive crash, and therefore, from a point of view of what we need to do, I would say it makes sense to asset allocate. Don't time the market. Be periodically investing into it. Stagger your investments over the course of time, so that you can take into benefit the volatility that can come through, rather than get worried that are we going to see a massive crash of 50-60%.
Indeed, as they say, time in the market is more important than timing the market. Now, we've spoken of economic phases and economic cycles. I also want to look at investor profiles and investor cycles, because you can have different stages. There are some investors who are very new to the market, some who are, middle of the road experience, and of course, some are very experienced. So, keeping in mind the investor profile cycle, I want you to outline the best practices for maintaining financial discipline, including regular investment practices and emergency fund management. This is especially relevant to a lot of the young and new investors who are coming into the market. If you could outline some suggestions on your side.
Right. So I think when there is a time to follow the crowd and there is a time to doubt the crowd, right? Because when we say crowd, herd, everything, markets are manic depressive. There are phases when they are in mania, there are phases when they are very depressed. And therefore, the key is the two extremes is when you want to take a contrarian stance. Otherwise, broadly the crowd knows better, and therefore you want to take a stance which is not very contrarian from that perspective, right? Today we are at a zone wherein the overwhelming nature of the investor mindset is they are very young. It doesn't mean that there's a fault with that, but overarchingly, holding periods have come down. So if you look at, say, the greater focus on FNO, for example, that investors are today exhibiting, which is all very near-term focused, right? They're looking at zero-day expiry, etc., rather than wanting to take a longer-term kind of a view. So that's the second aspect. The third aspect is, we are in that zone wherein I hate to say it, but the tip culture is back, which is market kya lagta hai, kya lena hai, what is it that you want to buy, what stock will go up in the next week, the next 10 days, etc. There's a lot of chatter around. Fourthly, if you're driving around, you do see across, for example, taxi drivers. Even as they have screen of some trading app, which they are also constantly monitoring apart from the traffic that they are otherwise helping us navigate. All of that does suggest that we have gone a bit too, I would say, overboard in terms of our expectations of market, and therefore I would say that it does make sense. The pendulum has swung to the extent of a bit of a mania in terms of what investors are. Even though in the bigger picture it's still a small blip, the amount of flows that have come through. But in the near term, it does look like we are having a bit of too much good happening as far as markets are concerned, and therefore it does make sense to be slightly contrarian, which is what we suggest is that if you were primarily in, say, small cap, now is the time for you to be in mid cap. If you were primarily in mid cap, to move into large and mid cap. If you were primarily into large and mid cap, to move into flexi cap. These are categories of mutual funds that I'm referring to, right? So that the idea is that risk has got disproportionately rewarded in the last 12, 18 months. It doesn't mean that you have to be completely out of the market. Ultimately, we continue to believe the longer term profile of Indian equities, but it makes sense to reduce your risk profile by at least one extent at this point of time, given the fact that a lot of Indians are wanting to not miss out on action by being in all of these short term instruments of FNO, etc. So be slightly contrarian. And to look at segments which have not really worked out to kind of invest into it. So these would be the two suggestions that I can give at this point of time to the average investor.
And before we let you go, if you could list out some common pitfalls in long-term financial planning and how they can be avoided to ensure financial fitness. I mean, the role of education, investor education, cannot be discounted here. And before we let you go, the idea is your message to the investing audience, the viewing audience, on the pitfalls that they can avoid when they look at long-term financial planning. Because as you mentioned, there will be times of extremes. The question is, how do you stay in the game even then? So if a final message from you, Harish.
Right. So as they say, it's not greed and fear that bring the downfall. It is envy. It's the worst kind of a thing to have, to see what the neighbor is doing and to try and match up to their standards rather than to look at what our own aspirations are. These are times wherein portfolios have gone up a lot for many investors. Rather than getting colored by what somebody else has done, in the markets, I think it is better to be more anchored to what one's risk profile and risk tolerance is. So that is one. The second thing is that today we are in a zone where there is a lot of news flow, but along with the news flow, there is also a lot of noise flow. I think it is very important and imperative to separate, genuine news and wisdom from the noise that otherwise accompanies. So, rather than getting colored by, one day moves, 1 week moves, etc., it is a lot more important to gauge that, 10 years from now, would you even recount what had happened in this particular week or that particular week, or are you more likely to see, where your goals have been met or not? And I think so. Therefore, that is a far more important thing than trying to maximize every trade that we are trying to do at. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, when we say that don't put all your eggs in one basket, it also means that some parts of the basket will not perform, and that is perfectly okay with it. It will. If all your investments and if all your instruments are performing, that also is too much of a problem. Maybe you're not as diversified as you think if all of them are performing at the same point of time. And therefore, it is important to also look at it and embrace certain amount of underperformance in your portfolio in certain instruments, as long as you're clear that why you bought it in the first place. So that would be my third thing. And lastly, I'm just going to echo your words. Time in the market is more important than time in the market. I think a lot of money is lost in anticipation of a correction. कि अभी आएगा, and therefore you end up missing the far bigger picture. Even if ultimately the correction does transpire. So therefore, time in the market is far more important than time in the market.
Well, lots of important messages there to our viewing audience. Separate the signals from the noise. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Have a balanced portfolio, just like a balanced diet, to improve your financial fitness. And of course, time in the market is more important than timing the market. Harish, thank you so much for joining us here on Nivesh Mahakumbh and sharing your expertise and insights on building and sustaining wealth. Indeed, your guidance has been invaluable, and we appreciate your time and contribution to this masterclass. Well, as we draw this year's Nivesh Mahakumbh to a close, we stand inspired by the enduring spirit of independence that our nation exemplifies. Now, just as our ancestors forged a path to freedom with resilience and determination, so too must we approach our personal financial journeys with the same tenacity and strategic foresight. A recent report by PwC estimates that India's household wealth could reach $10 trillion by 2030, underscoring the incredible potential if we continue to empower ourselves with financial knowledge and prudent strategies. Now, the power to shape this future lies in our hands, and the tools to do so have been expertly laid out in today's discussions and masterclasses. We are indeed very grateful to our esteemed speakers and participants for their contributions to this talk, to these discussions. Their insights have given us the knowledge and inspiration to take bold steps towards financial freedom. So as we look ahead to the future, let us remember that the journey towards financial independence is ongoing, requiring continuous learning, adaptation, and perseverance. Thank you so much to everyone for participating in Nivesh Mahakumbh 2024. We will return in 2025 with even more knowledge, strategies, and opportunities to empower your financial journey. Until then, let's carry forward the lessons of today and continue to build a secure and prosperous future for ourselves and our nation. This is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off.